We
got
can't
the
see you yet, Shomashish.
We don't get to see you.
now we see you here.
Yes. Still on.
Okay. I think it's 7:30, so maybe we can start.
Yeah.
Okay. So give me a moment to share. Okay, and I will also start recording. Okay. So welcome back, everyone. We are already in the final section of our event. So I hope all of you are making the most out of the discussions and networking happening throughout this event. Here for today, we have two fantastic sessions lined up. And on one of our core goals of Sci-ROI India, which is mentorship. And I wanted to go back, yeah. So in the first session for this evening, we have live talks and discussion on mentorship for return to India researchers, where we have panelists ranging from a policymaker who initiated a prosperous return to India fellowship program to several Indian diaspora from diverse STEM sectors who have returned to India and established themselves. This will be followed by the final session of our event, where established educators in India will discuss the importance of undergraduate mentorship, both from the perspective of early career researchers and undergraduate students in India. So without further ado, we will get started with the first session for this evening, which is the mentorship for return to India researchers. When young scholars go abroad to pursue higher education, they tend to slowly move away from any networks they had back in India and might lose track of how trends in Indian STEM are evolving over time. When they decide to come back, they have to establish that network again, scope the institutes which they want to join, even get accustomed to the differences in cultures and societal structure. And that is not an easy task. So we decided to bring this panel together to discuss some of these challenges and how they can be suitably addressed. As all of you have probably heard, chance always favors the prepared mind. So with that, I will be introducing our speakers. We have live talks from all our speakers, and then we'll have a brief panel discussion. So our first speaker for this session is Dr. Meenakshi Munshi. She was the she was the advisor and scientist G and the head of the HRD and societal program at Department of Biotechnology, DBT India. She obtained her PhD in botany from the University of Kashmir, and then was a research scientist at JNU and NIPGR. She had a brief stint as a Fulbright fellow at University of Canada. After that, she returned. No.
It was University of UC Davis, University of California, Davis.
California. I'm so sorry.
Fulbright is always for US.
Okay, great. So yeah, UC Davis. So sorry about that. And then when she returned back, she has been with DBT. She was with DBT for quite some time. She was the former program head at the Human Resource Development and Infrastructure. And at that position, she initiated the Ramalinga Swami Fellowship. I'm pretty sure all of you have heard of this fellowship, which has brought back a lot of enthusiastic Indian diaspora back and really helped them over the last few years. So we would like to know from Dr. Munshi a bit more about this fellowship and over the years when she has interacted with Indian diaspora, what would be her tips and strategies for them. So Dr. Munshi, all yours. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Manali. Thanks, first of all, for inviting me. Even if I am no more in the system, thanks for inviting me. I would share my thoughts with you guys. And let me share the screen. Oh, 1 minute. Very good morning to people overseas, and good evening to my fellow colleagues who are in India. I had been with the Department of Biotechnology for quite some time, and recently I have superannuated, but I continue to work as a consultant now. And let me tell you, like the Ramalinga Swami Fellowship, we had no clue that something like this can work. And it was way back in 2006-7 when the then Secretary Dr. Ban, along with the minister who was then Mr. Kapil Sibal, they both went to US, and then they had a meeting with Dr. Asim Ansari and many other people. They went around and they felt that we need a lot of trained minds back in India, because they were coming up with many research institutions and central universities, and ICERs and NICERs were coming up. That's how this program was initially developed, and now it's more than 12 years the program has been running. And initially we had no clue if anybody is really interested in coming back to India, and so we kept the things very open, no age limit, so anybody can apply, but they had to be Indian citizens. That was one of the important criteria. So what was the main thrust was growing Indian economy and highly trained diaspora, and reducing science and technology funds. And that time it was one of the reasons there was a lot of downturn. US and Europe, the funding was very less. And as I mentioned earlier, many institutions were established across the country that time. So that was probably a very apt time to start these kind of programs. Like the DBT started Ramalinga Swami Re-Entry Fellowship, and DST started Ramanujan Fellowship. So when I'll give you a little history why Ramalinga Fellowship, and we were wondering, see, this is going to be a very high standard and very reputed fellowship. So on whose name we should have. We had a lot of in-house debate on whose name, and finally we narrowed down to Professor V. Ramalinga Swami, who was a former DG of ICMR. And Dr. Ramalinga Swami had done a very pioneering work. And so this re-entry scheme was initiated and on his name way back in 2006 and 7. And over the years, let me tell you, this scheme has been modified looking at the interests of the young faculty, young scientists who are wanting to return. So when we started, we took 10 fellows, and no age limit. Whosoever wanted to apply, they had to have a host institute. Even if they didn't have a host institute, they simply sent us an application with a project which that person would have been able to conduct for next 5 years. And then they were screened by the expert committee, and 10 in the first batch we had 10 students, 10 fellows who were selected, and out of that 7 joined, and one person accepted but didn't join. So that's how we started this. Now, before I give you more about this, I would like to share with you the brief scenario of the R&D landscape in India currently. You all know that in India, the public expenditure on R&D is very less, of course, compared to the US. And the main reason is maybe the government is the primary source of funding. Now we are expecting the private sector also to chip in. But as of now, largely the more participation is from the government sector only. Now, what are the broad goals of R&D for India? Is to continue to strive for sustainable development, effectively tackle the climate catastrophic goals, focus on health and well-being of people, especially with the current pandemic. A lot of things have changed, and health has become the very front runner for the ministries to support, conserve biodiversity, of course. And this just gives you an idea about how the gross expenditure on R&D has increased over the years, and it still keeps on increasing. And this just gives you an idea about the expenditure. Although these figures are few years back, this just gives you a fairly good idea. Like a big chunk comes from the central government, followed by private and other sectors, states and public sector. So we having, as you all are aware, that India is globally at the third position in the number of publications as per the NSF database, third in the number of PhDs in science and engineering, and the number of researchers also is much more in India, and the number is growing. And as per WIPO report, India is ranked ninth in position in terms of resident patent filing. So we are in a good position. So this just gives you an idea about the Scopus and SIN and NSF ranking on our publication databases. So we are reasonably doing well in case of in this area as well. And this just tells you about our funding, which has gone up. During in 2018, India was ranked third, fifth, and ninth in the scientific research publications as per NSF, Scopus, and SCF database. And little bit variation you see, but they are probably because we adopt different methodological choices for coming up with these databases. So India is a biotech hub, and many startups have been supported from by the Department of Biotechnology, and we are among top 12 destinations for biotech research in the world, with approximately 3% share in the global biotech industry. And India is also the leader in the global supply of DPT, BCG, and measles. And currently, we have really done good in case of COVID vaccines also. And biotech industries are growing. In fact, DBT has started its BIRAC, that is a Biotechnology Industrial Research Assistance Council, which is the backbone for supporting the Indian startup ecosystem. So, and our target is by 2025, the industry is expected to reach 100 billion US dollars. So India as a biotech, this just gives you the idea about how much money the Department of Biotechnology is spending on R&D. And this is last year's figure. The figure has increased this year. So what are the incentives of being in India doing research is, you all know, we are a growing economy. There are increased career opportunities because many of the many ICERs, NICERs, and central universities have been started, and they are open to many new faculty, young faculty. Infrastructure has been better now. When new people went, I think things have changed since then. But of course, we cannot compare them to the Western countries. But we have grown at our own pace. There is a policy support. There is a industrial involvement also. Now, more and more corporate funding is also expected to help researchers growing. So India has become a new land of opportunities for our own Indian young scholars, young scientists, and so that they would like to come back to return to India. So that's how the Ramalinga Swami Reentry Fellowship Program was started. It's more than 10 years of journey. I have been involved with this program since its inception. So this just gives an idea about how much funding has been spent on this fellowship program, and the funding has been grown in every year because the number of fellows are joining, more and more number of fellows are joining. So basically, when we started this fellowship program with the aim that Indian scientists working abroad anywhere in the world can come back, they should have a PhD or MD PhD with a minimum of 3 years of postdoc experience. And as I mentioned earlier, there was no age limit, but subsequently we moved to 55. And then we realized if somebody comes at the age of 55, there's an issue of permanent job. So that's a major concern. Then based on the discussion with experts, the age limit was reduced to 45, so that, they are eligible for the job. So what they get currently, when we started, it was 50,000 and then 60,000 and then 75,000. Now, currently, what they get is 1 lakh rupees as a fellowship amount, and HRA is 18,500. A contingency grant of 10 lakhs for first 2 years, 7.5 lakhs for next 2 years, and last year means on the 5th year they get 5 lakhs. Duration is 5 years. Now, those who are not able to get a permanent position during those 5 years, they are considered for an extension of 2 years with fellowship and no research grant. So that the main aim is that they should look for the job. See, the aim of this fellowship is not to give you the permanent job, to help you. This acts as a buffer when you come back. So you have fairly 5 years time so that you can look around for the job. Where you can work anywhere in the country, any research R&D institution or the university system. So I thought I'll just share what is, in fact, this 444 fellows, this has gone up to now 550. It's more because these are the last year figure. And publication numbers also have gone up. Then we have startups. In fact, more patents, more than 40 patents are there. Few of the scientists have done excellently well. We have a couple of Bhatnagar fellows, few bioscientist awardees, and some are young women scientists awardees. So they're doing very well. Now, this is the last year, as I told you, this was the last year's figure, but this time we have another 30 people have already added to this list. This just gives an idea of how many applications we received and how many got selected, how many joined. So what happened in some of the cases, they accepted the fellowship, but they got better fellowships like Wellcome Trust. So then they cannot have 2 fellowships at a time. So they left Ramalinga Fellowship or Ramanujan Fellowship and they moved to the Wellcome Trust or some other fellowship. So now this gives you an idea, like, those initial batches, whosoever I joined, like they have got, all of them have got jobs. And as we move along, you may see in the later these histogram, later less number of people have got the job. The reason is because they are still, some are in their second year, some are in the third year, some are in the fourth year. But if you look at the overall ratio, it's nearly 65% have been able to get their jobs, and some people are still searching. And yes, this is a matter of concern. Male number of fellows are more than the female. Probably females have, because if their spouses are overseas or they are somewhere else, they may not like to relocate alone. So this is a concern that we have less number of female scientists who have returned and joined. And the good part is now the presence of these Ramalinga fellows. Earlier it was very much restricted, although still it is in certain pockets, like in certain places it's more, like Karnataka, Delhi, but Uttar Pradesh. But if you look at the overall scenario, things have changed. We have no presence in Assam, Bihar, Goa, Gujarat, Jharkhand, Jammu and Kashmir, and it is spreading. Manipur we have. So people are now understanding the value and importance of this fellowship program, and they're accepting it as the fellowship. As I was being told that I should also talk about what are the constraints. I'll talk a little later. So this just uses a graphic representation of pictorial representation where they are going. These fellows, they are distributed across 24 states in the country. And where are they coming from? You can see from this slide, they're coming from across different parts of the world. Yes, the big chunk comes from US, obvious reason, because most of us want to go to US for the postdoc. That's how big chunk is returning from there. And where are they joining? They are joining in ICER, NICER, medical colleges, IITs, NIITs, IISc, DAE institutions, ICMR, ICR, private universities, so DBT funded institutions, CSI. I mean, they are spread across the spectrum. So I thought I must share some of the successful stories with you people. Just gives you a glimpse of these are some of the fellows who have. I mean, this guy, Dr. Panchan Gulla, he worked in NCL and he came up with a startup and he has licensed this technology also. And now, after some time, he has moved to overseas again. Dr. Praveen Vemula, he's come up with the hydrogel-based delivery system to prevent organ rejection. And even that hydrogel is used if somebody uses a pest, even a person uses pesticide, if it doesn't fall on the skin, if you just wrap your, put that cream on the skin and then it doesn't get attached to your body. It's a hydrogel. Then Subhashi Sarangi has also come up with a non-invasive method for cancer detection. Ramaya developed accurate and affordable surgical navigation. Naresh Bal, Senthil, these are some of the scientists. I thought because there are many scientists who have joined and done excellent work, but it was becoming difficult keeping the time constraints in mind. So these are the people who have done really well. We have a couple of them like Amit Avasti and Amit. Amit has done good work in immunology, and Amit he's a Bhatnagar awardee also. Mahendra has also done good work on synthetic transmembrane peptide force for single molecule sensing. Faisal is working on vaccine development and rapid diagnosis for zoonotic diseases, especially leptospirosis. So getting to know about the problems faced by fellows is very important. See, we circulated these Google Sheets and some responded, some did not. So this is just how the scheme was rated by people on the scale of 1 to 10. We had asked all the host institutions they should provide leave, LTC, medical allowance to major and facilities. Now, what is happening? These many of the research institutions are catering to their needs, but big problem they are facing with the university system, where these fellows, in fact, when they joined in the beginning, they would say, okay, JRF, SRF, RA, oh, this is another fellow. So then it took a while for us to make them understand, no, they are not any other fellows. They are fellows who are at par with scientist D or an assistant professor. And this thing went well with the system, with the institutions, the R&D institutions. They did give them this kind of facilities, but university system, they have their own system of dealing with the things. So their issues are there. And this just gives you how easy because they are eligible to apply for the normal extramural grants from the funding agency. So this just gives an idea how difficult and how easy it was then to get the grants from the funding agency. And this tells you the extent to which the expectations of the fellows were fulfilled on the scale of 1 to 10. So this, we had annual conclaves. I thought what we do, we realize that these fellows need hand-holding. So for first 2 years, we understand the first year they take to set up the lab, and second year they'll do some work. And only after 2 years of their spending the time in the lab, we call them for the presentation. Now in these conclaves, what we do, we bring seniors, experts, and mentors who give the mentor talks and who share their journey with these young fellows. That when they came, they were given just a room, and this is it. So how they converted this room into a full-fledged laboratory and a successful laboratory where the person developed, published papers, developed their research interests, developed technology, got awarded. So then these are senior people also share their stories and young people. And subsequently, as we moved along in this journey, we invited the Ramalinga fellows to complete their tenure. They so that they would come and share their journey, like how they were treated initially and or over the course of 5 years, how they transit, how the transition was from a fellow to a faculty or to a scientist. They would share their journey, and then we would also have a session on how to write a utilization certificate if you got a grant, how to write funds, what are the important things, how to establish a lab. So each session is a part of the conclave. We have these conclaves every year. In fact, we used to have physical conclaves, but because of the pandemic, we are having these online conclaves. And very soon, on 28th, I think we have a conclave. So, what are the concerns? I mean, when the fellows come, see, they feel. First thing I would tell them, whenever they want to write a project, they should write a project which they feel they will be able to complete within 5 years. See, when you do a project in the US or an overseas lab, you know the kind of infrastructure, the kind of facilities, the kind of chemicals, and whatever you need for the experiment to carry out, it is there. If not in your lab, the next lab or the next lab, you manage. But here, things are different. And sometimes the procedural hiccups are also there. So keep your eyes open. See, you went from here maybe 10 years down the line, or 5 years, or 7 years. Things were different that time. Definitely things have improved. And you come with an open mind. And if you, the moment you land here and if you feel, oh, I was doing this experiment in a day, now here I'm taking a 1 week, then there's going to be a problem. Because you cannot compare the two situations there and here. You see here how you are able to manage, and then you connect with other people, you connect with senior fellows. See, that's one of the prime purpose of these conclaves, so that you connect with seniors and talk to them how they can be of help to you, or you can talk to senior mentors also. They are ready to help anytime. And the thing is, do some little research while finding out a host institute, because what is happening, people just for the heck of it, like they'll forward your application, and when you land there and they don't provide you right kind of facilities, and then you look around, you know, want to change the host institute. What is happening as per the guidelines? First change of the host institute we allow readily, but the second host institute change is only allowed when you get a permanent position. So there, I would like to share with some of the fellows, there has been a problem, like one person joined one institute, then she realized, oh, she's not able, they're not letting her do the work as she thought, though it was a premier institute. Then she moved to another institute. Unfortunately, there also she had a similar problem. And then this became an issue, but she's not able to change as per the guidelines. So that is why it is important for you people to do some due diligence, do some research, even talk to fellows who can help you. I can share with you, we have a directory of fellows which was made when we completed 10 years of this fellowship program. And you can talk to them. There are phone numbers, there are emails. At least they can help you out, which is the potential good institute, or if there are some problems in the another institute.
So Dr. Munshi,
yeah, I'm done. I'm done.
Sorry about that. We will be coming back to some Q&A. So maybe that will be a good time to continue the discussion, if that's okay.
I'm done.
Thank you so much.
It was the last slide. Thank you very much. I'm ready to take questions.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Munshi. We'll be coming back once we hear from our other speakers to the Q&A. So, and people will be posting questions in the Q&A box as well. So if you want to go through them. Thank you so much, Dr. Munshi. I mean, that's like a fantastic initiation. And I know personally so many people who have already taken, made that transition, right? So thank you. So with that, we would move on to our next speaker of this session, Dr. Punam Thakur. She is currently the assistant professor at School of Biology at IISER Tiruvananthapuram. Prior to this, she obtained her PhD in neuroscience from Punjab University, and then she went abroad for her postdoctoral training, one at Lund University in Sweden, and Goethe University in Germany. And her expertise is in Parkinson's disease research. And she then decided to come back as the India Alliance Fellow in 2019 at CCMB. And then she became a professor in her current position at IISER Tiruvananthapuram. So as I said, her research mainly focuses on developing better mouse models and utilizing them to decipher Parkinson's disease mechanism and develop biomarkers and therapeutics. Dr. Thakur has also been very vocal about building an inclusive and open scientific ecosystem through documentation of scientific journey. So today we invite her to tell us a bit more about her journey and how she thinks we can, start, creating a network while we are thinking of making this transition. So thank you, Dr. Thakur, for joining us, and all yours.
Thanks a lot, Manali, for the kind introduction. And I'm really happy to share some of my experiences and some of my thoughts here. I hope you can all see my slides. All right.
Yeah.
So my slides are not really per se, slides in the sense that Dr. Munshi had very informative slides. So they are just pointers to a few things that I'm going to talk about. So I believe all of the attendees here are the ones who have already kind of made a decision that they do want to return to India, or at least they have a very, very strong inclination to return to India. But as Manali initially pointed out, that when we make that decision, or we are in the process of making that decision, and we have been abroad for PhD or postdoc for 5 years, 10 years or so, when we want to come back, we are certainly at loss sometimes, that we don't know how to come back, how to start the process, when to start the process. And actually there is now a lot of information available, a lot of articles being written about it, so you can get some glimpse into it. But I have tried to condense some of that information that I believe would be useful to many of you who are planning to return. So of course, networking is something that is really, really essential for your transition back to India, because if you're not able to network, it is really, really difficult to find support, where to go, how to go, what to expect out of the journey, how easy or difficult the transition will be. So that is really, the key feature here. And all of us are really motivated by, the feeling that we want to contribute to our country, in addition to all the personal reasons we of course have. And I think that motivation is something that we really need to carry within us, because transition, even when we are going from India to abroad, is not always easiest, but also when we return from abroad to India is also not easiest. So we must remember that transition difficulties are both ways. It's nothing unique in returning back to India. So a bit of that mindset about positivity on returning to India is really important to help you sail through the process. And so how do you get started on the networking aspect, right? So one thing that you have to really think is, when do you start networking? So, okay, you have been thinking seriously about returning to India, or you have made your decision, but remember that the entire process can take quite a while. The whole process can easily last you 1 to 2 years, because when you start making applications, you start applying to institutes, and you may get called for interviews, and that process itself might take a long time, because institutes, some are doing the recruitment process quite slowly. They will review the applications maybe once or twice a year. Others may be doing it faster. Others may have advertised positions against which recruitment will happen over some time. But the entire process can easily take 1 year minimum, and maybe up to 2 years or something, depending upon if you are very specific in choices of your institutes where you are applying and all. So one must be prepared for that much period of time, and make sure that you start your application processes well in time, when you still have your postdoc contracts running, because when you are really applying in last 6 months and then you are under heavy stress to find something and you don't have a lot of time, and then you are that entire process can get extremely frustrating and stressful. So you must really plan it well. Also, you have to be a bit prepared about the thing that don't wait until your postdoc paper is published. Sometimes we think, only when our paper is out somewhere we will be considered seriously for something, while you can start making the formal applications after that process. One has to start making some ground already before that. For example, visiting institute, talking to people and all. So when you think you have some, story ready that is ready to start going into a paper, get started with the process of networking. Don't wait until your story is out, because people would be interested in hearing what research you have done, what story is going to come out. And anything fresh would be very interesting to people, to the institutes, and to many other places that you would be looking to go to. So starting early really helps. Also, so you, for example, you have published one paper, or something that you have co-authored with other people in the lab, and your main paper or something else is, or you are still waiting to publish a second paper or something. So don't wait until you have published everything. We all know in biology, publication is a long run process. After submission also, it may take several months for your papers to come out. So just once your papers are ready for submission process or something, you can get started with networking process very actively. So that is like about timing the processes. But okay, once you're ready with the things, you're ready with okay, now I'm in the right phase that I can start networking, then how to go about it. And different people would come from different backgrounds and where they had studied. For example, you might have done your undergrad in India or postgrad in India, or some of you have also done your PhDs in India and went abroad only for postdoc, like me. So you would still know some people in India, or you would have at least some inkling onto how the process works in India. So best thing is that when you make the decision, that you actually tell your network, whosoever people say your undergrad teachers, your undergrad classmates, they all, many of them might still be in sciences, many of them might not be in sciences, but whosoever back home, or even your fellow postdocs in labs abroad, whosoever just tell them, or any other people who might have collaborators in India. Just let your network know that this is what you are looking to do, and many people will very happily point you towards opportunities or place you in touch with relevant people. So that is just leverage whatever you have existing. That is really important. So don't keep it to yourself that okay, I'm thinking but I'm not so sure, and then I don't know if I should tell people or not. So don't be hesitant about telling people, and just whatever or whosoever good to tell them about your thought process, and opportunities will be sent your way by those people. And of course, it is not enough to just talk to those people who might be your undergrad classmates. You still need to grow and reach out to more people. So how do you do that? So of course, you can always cold email people. That may work, may not work. It really depends on lots of factors, who you are writing, how you're writing, and all of that. So of course, one has to be a bit prepared on that. But social media, for example, Twitter, has really been thriving, a very thriving space for Indian science. In last few years, that has been really an active community, very helpful community, and people are really, easily approachable. So one must definitely make use of that. If you are social media savvy, or even if you are not, I would really urge you to make use of it. It is really helpful space for you to meet people. And of course, whenever you can go and physically meet people, someone is coming to your institute to give a talk, walk up to them, talk to them, or you are going elsewhere, you met someone in a conference. So it always helps to talk to people, let them know you are interested, this is what you are looking for. Even if they can't help you directly with anything, few words of advice, something active, some, knowledge or information about some opportunities or something can happen. So talking to people always helps in whatever way or platform you can. Another very, very useful thing that I did and I found incredibly helpful was to attend conferences in India. When we are abroad, we are doing postdocs abroad, we are always attending all these international conferences in all good locations here and there. But we forget that, the field is also there in India. And to keep yourself relevant to that and to stay alive in that sector, it's important to go back and attend conferences for at least that field in India. So I'm a neuroscientist, so I made it a point to at least once or twice come back to India to attend Indian neuroscience, Indian Academy of Neuroscience Society meeting or Indian Biophysical Society meeting that I used to attend during my master's and all, and few other meetings that, so I came back to at least 3 conferences during my postdoc. And those were really, really instrumental for making my transition, even though I did not get any opportunity per se from that conference, but I got in touch with many other neuroscientists. I got in touch with people from other institutes and all. And they can really provide you some insight into, okay, who are going to actively hire, where are positions going to be advertised, or are they looking for people in the particular area that you work in and all. So a lot of, because it's a condensed place where a lot of scientists from many institutes would be there. So it's a really, really good place to network and, make yourself a known face in the community of the research field that you are in. So that's a very, very helpful place to go to. And another set of meetings that is not really for scientific field per se, but are really focused on people returning back is YIM meetings, Young Investigator meetings. They are spearheaded by India Biosciences. I'm sure most of you would know what India Biosciences is. If you don't know, you can Google it. It's a very, very helpful tool or a niche space that is really helpful for everyone, from young faculty members to returning postdocs and people studying in India. So just check it out. These meetings are annual meetings, and they are also the places where institute heads or institute representatives would come. Many postdocs from abroad would come. Young PIs who have just started their labs would come. So it's a place for you to talk to those people, to get to know what to expect when you return to India, and also get in touch with people who are looking to hire. Because people who are coming to those meetings are the ones who are actively looking for people to join their institutes. So you can talk to them, set up some meetings and maybe even set up job talks and all of that. So YIMs are very, very helpful. And now Sci-ROI in recent years have also become another platform that is very, very active, which is really appreciable. And so these two are really useful platforms for you to attend, and they will help you to network immensely.
Dr. Thakur,
yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt. In the interest of time, I think we'll have to move to next speaker now.
Yeah, sure.
Conclude. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, sure. So I'll just finish with this last point on this. So also, most of you would return to India every year for your vacation or something. Whenever you're returning, you can always write to HODs or directors of the institutes that you are hoping to target, and you can give talks there. And most people are very happy to receive, to host people who are visiting and host your talks. And from that point also, you can go and take your discussions forward. So I hope those all tips are helpful to you. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Thakur, so much. And we'll again come back to some of the questions our audience is asking in a little while. So we will move on to our next speaker for this session, Dr. Shomashish Ghosh Dastidar, and he's currently the assistant professor at Center for Molecular Neurosciences at MAHE. And prior to this, he obtained his PhD at University of Texas at Dallas in cellular and molecular biology. He then went on to do a postdoctoral training at Sanford Consortium, and then worked as a senior research associate at Duke University. And at this point, he decided to return to India in 2019, I believe, where he joined MAHE as an assistant professor. And so actually, Dr. Ghosh Dastidar has been an integral part of Sci-ROI Global, and he has been helping a lot of Indian diaspora return back to India, and he's really passionate about mentoring budding scientists. So we have invited him today to share his experiences with us about how to scope institutes and how to build a research team. So over to you, Dr. Dastidar.
Okay, I always struggle sharing my screen. Is it? Can you see it, Manali?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. You can call me Shomashish, and it's great to see that you are carrying the torchlight after us. And at the onset, am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. So I would like to credit all this to Sci-ROI. I was not sure of coming back to India, and I had a dream inside, but Sci-ROI actually sprouted it, and I was deeply associated with Sci-ROI for 2 years, and then I moved back to India. And Manipal, MAHE Academy of Higher Education, gave me the wings. So I'm really, really indebted to both of them. So, you have done really well in your life, my young friends and my colleagues who are planning to come back. Your journey started with qualifying a very difficult examination, and you made a choice. And after that, you did rigorous training, which culminated into a PhD and a postdoc. Now you have the options to do a lot of things. You can become a scientist under a big umbrella, join industry, policy, administration, or set your own startup. These are novel and equally important cog in the wheel. Don't misunderstand me at this stage. But deep inside, you are an explorer, a traveler, adventurer, thrill seeker, and you just can't sit still, and you don't mind sacrificing a lot of things for something beyond. Then you are, a PI. You have the PI mindset. So what do? You join, this type of events, and you make a passionate choice, and you volunteer to be a PI. You're not awarded a assistant professor position. You volunteer for it, and you work hard to earn it. Remember, the assistant professor position is like a probationer in special courses, and the system selects you and lets you know who you actually are. So make no mistake, this is a profession and not a hobby. So prepare for the chaos in the first few years. As ma'am said, Dr. Munshi said that the first 2 years, it's going to be a rough ride. So make your mind, ready for that. You have to convince yourself and your family why you want to come back. You have to have absolutely clarity at this stage. If you mess up, you're going to go back again, and it's very difficult, to go back. And it is a choice that you make for yourself, but it will impact a lot of people downstream. So make a very, very informed choice. You need to scout for your institute and your infrastructure. You need to know the colleagues you want to work with, figure out how to fund your research, setting up the lab, getting motivated PhD students and postdocs, getting all the necessary clearance even you start your work. You'll face administrative responsibilities. You'll be a member in many committees that I was never aware of. You will have either teaching or training responsibilities and millions of things which you don't see now. The most important thing I felt is that where you should put 100% emphasis and focus is your institute and infrastructure. And I say it because I did it. After you have found a host institute that you want to relocate, and you want to be your host institute for, say, RLS or Ramanujam or India Alliance, visit that place physically. Take a vacation or a break, as Dr. Thakur said, and come and see the place for yourself. Make sure that you will be absorbed after your probation. See if they do or they do not. understand the infrastructure critically at this stage. What machines or equipments are available that you need for your research. It will help you estimate the startup money that you will ask the institute. I need this amount of money to do my research. If you have a two-body problem, like your spouse also is working and is established, you have to find out what are the opportunities for him or her that the institute you plan to move can provide. If it is not, there, then it makes life a little bit difficult. If you have a family, a budding family, you have to consider childcare, like who is going to babysit your child, and that's a big thing. The next speaker will tell you a lot, a lot about it, and it affects your work. You have to take care of your aging parents, schooling, library, where you want to eat, where you want to hang out, or your place of worship, the community you want to live in, whether about the safety of the woman, the children, whether you have like lung problem or COPD or anything asthmatic. You cannot stay in a polluted place. Basic amenities, like health infrastructure and other things, transportation from your place of work to your home or to any other place. How is the weather? Do you fit in there or not? Housing, rental property. It is better to visit at this stage. You can Google, you can also call and talk to people who are there, but trust me, it does not help that much. They would like to have you there, and you might not get the right picture. See for it yourself and be very, very critical when you do that. You should also consider the expense of living, to the city you want to relocate. The next very important thing is that what I did not do when I was there, and you must please do this. You are planning to write either Ramalinga Swami or Ramanujam or India Alliance, but it's not one grant. You should limit yourself. Write 3 grants simultaneously, and make sure that the grants are very diverse from each other. The experts will catch you. If it's a continuation of your RLS, they will catch you. And you have to be very honest to yourself there, and try to be very diverse in your 3 projects, but not outside your ambit of experience. If you are not comfortable, find a collaborator who have experience to make the work happen. Then setting up the lab, and as ma'am said, Meenakshi ma'am said that it takes 2 years, and I cannot agree enough on that. It does, and beyond. So you have to be prepared for it unless you're going to the premier institutes. So, and also these things also comes as an informed choice, the place where you want to go and you want to do. So before you come, prepare a very detailed list of equipments, vendor number, catalog number, everything to the details as a pipette and a pipette tip. Check if the major equipments that you need for your work is present in your future institute or not. If not, then you have to budget for it for your intramural startup grant. And then see if the major equipments are centrally located or they're in accessible places. If not, then you need to buy them, and you need to justify your new your administration that why you need to buy it again. So make sure of those things. Make sure that you have a lab space and office space. I did that. Get a written confirmation. Please be open to private sectors. It's not as bad, or they're equally good. There is a lot of pros to go into a private sector. You must catalog all the reagents and the vendors that you use. This is very important. Find and make contact with similar vendors or distributors in India before you move, and the region you are shifting to. Make contact with them. You will figure out why I say this once when you move back. While on your trip to India, meet the purchase and finance team of your future institute and learn how they operate, because it's totally different from US. Only I think IISc and few select places have those type of operations. Others are very different. How long do they take to place an order? If it's 1 month, 2 months, or 3 months when you order to get a reagent, you have to plan ahead. So you have to account for that in advance. And finding the next thing is to find a motivated or graduate, motivated PhD or a postdoc. I mean, there is no such thing. You can never find one. You have to motivate them every day, just as your advisor, PhD advisor did to you. Help them focus on what is important. What is the big picture? Build their trust. Be compassionate to them. They are exposed to from like bookish knowledge to an entirely different world. So they're going to take time. Be prepared to give them that space, or it is going to frustrate you a lot. This thing I never knew before I moved, and I thought that I must bring it to your attention, is that Know about all the regulatory clearances that you require for your project, like institutional ethical committee clearance, institutional biosafety committee, review committee on genetic manipulation, institutional animal ethical committee. Learn about what are these things. Go and talk to your dean or associate dean research about these projects when you visit India, and ask them, give me these papers and documents. Start working on these things before you come here, because it takes a hell a lot of time and you have to be prepared for that. I wasted a lot of time, doing this thing. You need to know about the material transfer agreements. It was done for you by somebody you never understood, but it takes time. So help yourself in this. If you are not sure about it, talk to your future would-be colleagues and ask them for help. This will, this will actually cut short your time by a huge margin. And I think this is the most important thing. And if you can look at the background, it's just like a picture of the special forces. And you know that each one of them have equal, different, very diverse skill, but they come together for a big vision. So what you should try to do is that, and Sci-ROI is the right platform to do it. I did it, so you can too. Talk about your vision with your friends. Find people with diversified skill sets, but complementary, and then move together. And for sake of time, I won't be able to tell you how to do it, but if I get time, I can share my experience. Project your vision and see if you can find interest among scientists of your age group who will stand with you for the next 15, 20 years, and for whom you will do the same. Like you will take a bullet for him or her, and she or he will do the same for you. Find those people. It is not always about you. It's, learn that it's about the team and its big vision. I will skip this slide for the sake of time. And I would like to thank Sci-ROI first, because you started this dream for me, and I cannot thank you enough. I'm really enjoying this phase. I would like to thank my guardian angel, who once told me, "Beta, just apply. Don't worry about the result. Just apply." I really thank my guardian angel. Ramalinga Swami Fellowship for this tremendous opportunity. And recently, I can tell you how I got into ICMR. There are strategies and all these things. And Kasturba Medical College for giving me a very good startup money to, set up the unit. I would like to thank our vice chancellors who actually funded the startup money. In neuroscience, it's very expensive, and they had the vision to do it. I'll remain, grateful for them a lot. My dean, Dr. Sharat Rao, who built an animal facility for me with, it's very good. It's just like dew. And most importantly, I'd like to thank Dr. Chiranjay Mukhopadhyay, who shared his vision and is building a team. Just as I said, he's building a team of interdisciplinary, scientists coming together towards a great goal that actually caters to India. And Dr. Krishnanda Prabhu, another associate dean academics, who is also a guardian angel. And again, I have Dr. Chiranjay Mukhopadhyay. He's a mentor for Center for Emerging Tropical Disease, and I developed, a new idea coming here, and we are working towards that as a team. And I would like to thank my home, Center for Molecular Neuroscience, for this. And most importantly, the kids, if you can see them, masters and PhD students who make every day worthwhile. Thank you. Sorry, I ran over the time.
No, thank you. Thank you so much. Again, I think we will have some time in the end to go over, your experiences a bit more. So with this, I will like to introduce our next speaker, Dr. Darshana Joshi. She is the founder and CEO of Vigyanshala International. She got her PhD in physics at University of Cambridge, and she was also a member and trustee of University Council and president of the Cambridge University Graduate Union. While she was there, she co-founded Vigyanshala in 2015 and now is the founder of Vigyanshala International. Her focus is mainly on building a capability-driven organization to make STEM education and skills accessible to the most marginalized across India. We invited Dr. Joshi today to talk a bit more about some really discussed issues like salary negotiations, childcare facilities, that, as someone who wants to return back to India also needs to take care of. So thank you, Dr. Joshi, for joining us, and all yours.
Thank you, Manali. Thank you for the kind introduction. I just wanted to give a heads up that I have slightly modified what I'm going to talk in my session from, salary negotiations and talk, because I did realize that the whole session was pretty heavily inclined towards academics. So I wanted to bring in a different perspective. So I don't know whether you are all able to see my screen, while it will cover some of the questions that you just mentioned. But as I mentioned that this talk is going to cover my journey in science, as well as my transition into social entrepreneurship and return to India, and how we navigated the Indian ecosystem, and how it can actually potentially inspire many of you in the audience today to think that as another route to re-entry into India. Also, like, not just as a re-entry route to India, but also like if you are into academic institutions and all, if you're looking at building your own enterprises or social enterprises. So I hope that is okay, and many audience here will find it useful. So a brief about my journey. I'm a daughter of a farmer electrician and a homemaker couple. I was the first generation learner, and like literally the first girl in my entire village, and even like the low income neighborhood in Delhi where I grew up, like a first girl who actually went to do a PhD in the pure sciences and physics. I was born in Almora, a beautiful town in the hills, like in the foothills of Himalayas. Grew up in Delhi, went to a government school in Delhi, was very fortunate to get support from a Delhi-based NGO that supports girls from low-income families for my studies. Did my bachelor's in physics in Miranda House. Attended a Jawaharlal Nehru Center for Advanced Scientific Research, Bangalore, for a master's in material science. Followed by a PhD at the University of Cambridge, where I was also awarded the Schlumberger Foundation's Faculty for the Future Fellowship for women from developing countries. And both Udayan Care and Schlumberger Foundation fellowships basically gave me access to a wonderful tribe that still, has got my back. In 2019, I returned to India, and Vigyanshala International as an organization was born. Many of you might have been confused why 2015 and 2019, two different timelines. We founded Vigyanshala as a group of volunteers based across the globe who were contributing to science outreach in India in 2015, when we were still doing our PhDs. And then when I returned to India, we formally established it as a charitable trust based out of Delhi that is on a mission to bring quality STEM education and opportunities for every aspiring child. In between, I also was elected as the first Indian woman who won this election of Postgraduate Students Union at Cambridge University. That also gave me an opportunity to be part of the university governance structure there and serve as a trustee of the university. The reason why I'm mentioning this thing specifically here is, as researchers who are planning to come to India, who've always been in lab, I think it's really important to acquire different skill sets. As Devashish and other speakers before me just mentioned, that you will just not need to do your research, but you will actually have to run a small enterprise of your own, be part of several committees, contribute to building strategies of the institutions that you are part of. So if you are abroad, if you are doing your postdoc, whether in India or abroad, make sure that you be part of the governance and something that is outside of your university. Get involved with postdoctoral research as research unions and other things that are there, enterprise societies. Everything that you do will eventually give you a unique skill set that will help you upon your return to India as a scientist. These skill sets will also give you, exposure at other soft, less spoken about skills, like such as negotiations, both to the committees and as well as within the institutions and outside of those. I'm really fortunate that I married a wonderful man who shares my passion for communicating science and building communities. It's coincidental that as we got married, we both together co-founded Vigyanshala, paused our research careers and came back to India to take a deep dive into social entrepreneurship. So from there began our transition from being scientists to being social entrepreneurs and, following our passion. Our journey so far has rested on the shoulders of giants. My mentors, Professor Pratibha Choli, who is leading a very innovative project called Gender Advancements in Transforming Institutions, a DST project, which is bringing more inclusive gender practices across institutions in India, as well as Professor Shobna Narasimhan, who is a vocal advocate of women in STEM. So they both have been instrumental for us in not just building Vigyan Shala, but have given their unconditional support at each step, whether it's in terms of strategic advice or being part of the programs as well. So at Vigyan Shala, we are shaping the future of STEM by bringing new minds to the forefront of STEM. We are doing it through two of our programs. One is Kalpana, where we are building a tech-enabled mentoring platform, and we have a audacious goal of nurturing 1 million maker girls over the next 10 years. I'm going through much of it, how we are doing and all very quickly. I'm not going to details, I'm just sharing. And then we have another program, which is the STEM Champions Fellowship for rural students, where we are working with rural undergraduates, giving them access to community lab spaces where they are able to build and design innovative research projects and skills. And this is one example where we are actually, can show that some of our students here, for example, just with trash, they built a breath simulator where they could vary pressure. They could show that how a sneeze is different from a cough or a normal breathing, and they just built it with locally available material, and then they put different masks and all in front of it to show how masks can actually be effective in checking the transmission of COVID. So we are actually giving these aspiring, budding STEM enthusiasts an opportunity to create and learn STEM the practical way, which they are missing in their curriculum. So these are the two programs that we have been building. As rosy as it may sound to be called a scientist, social entrepreneur, there have been a lot of challenges, and much of those challenges are to do with reintegrating into the ecosystem. And I will mention some of those. So what did we miss? First of all, we missed the tribe. We missed the support of a thriving community that could help us in building our enterprise, that could give us an opportunity to reflect and also navigate what was already there. Of course, financial support when it comes to building up a social enterprise is a big challenge. We absolutely did not have any clue on what it meant on a personal as well as professional front to be an entrepreneur. So we did miss the skills and both entrepreneurial as well as the life skills to required to build enterprise. Like especially I like to say building an enterprise is tough work, but building a social enterprise is tougher, because you are not sure until when can you invest your own money, and how do you actually plan to sort of bring in, thinking about all the finance, revenue models, product market fit structures. We knew none of it, because none of it had been part of the experiences and the trainings that we actually required. So if you are thinking of building something, whether an enterprise or a for-profit social enterprise, or literally starting your own spin out, I would say now is the time. Ensure that you are building robust networks which are going to have your back when you either come back to India or you're building it abroad. Ensure that you are able to put an ask, like just having a lot of people have network, but they don't have the audacity to just go and make an ask. So I think that's another thing that we learned. Like, it's really important to be shameless and to put an ask to your network, because until you won't ask, you won't get the help. And building a culture takes a lot of hard work. So
Professor Joshi, sorry to interrupt. In the interest of time, I think we'll have to move on.
Yeah, this is my last slide. Like, literally,
okay.
Next is the last slide. So this
okay.
is literally the last slide. So thank you. All I wanted to conclude is, like, the narrative is changing. There are a lot of opportunities for people who aspire to become scientific or entrepreneurial in nature. We have some of the support network I have listed here, and I'm saying, if you are able to dream bold, and if you're missing culture and tribe you wish you had. Start building it today. Thank you.
Darshan, I would love to connect with you, Dr. Nakshi here.
Sure, ma'am. I'm just not sure how to stop sharing.
That's
Okay.
okay, Dr. Can. Thank you. Thank you so much.
I'm so sorry. I hope I didn't overshoot too much.
No worries at all. Again, we'll come back to some of the questions, but thank you. So we have our last speaker for this session, Dr. Ronak Bardia, and he is currently a researcher of scientific image analysis and simulations at Shell India. He after doing his BTech in mechanical engineering from IIT Bombay, he moved to University of Wisconsin-Madison in US for his master's and PhD. Where he did his research in the field of computational fluid dynamics. Ronak has also been an integral part of the Sci-ROI global team as well as the Sci-ROI India team, and he loves to engage in community volunteering. And today we would like to learn more about some of the differences in financial responsibilities, cultural and family shock, and how to build a network when you are coming back here. So thank you, Ronak, for joining, and over to you.
Thanks, and I think I jumped the gun by sharing early, so sorry about that. I saw a lot of our panelists having really good slides, so I quickly cooked these slides up. I didn't have slides, I just thought I'll talk, but now with these slides, I hope I'm able to do justice to what I wanted to convey. At first, thank you so much for the Sci-ROI team. It's a really good initiative again to start this kind of a session within India. And Manali has already kind of given a background about me. My name is Ronak. I did my undergrad at IIT Bombay, finished my PhD from UW Madison. And I'm currently working as a research scientist at Shell in Bangalore. Well, I'm not in Bangalore. I'm working remotely from Jaipur. That's my hometown. So basically, I am coming from a perspective of working in a multinational company, in the corporate sector, in the private sector after finishing your PhD. And I immediately started my journey, my career in India. So that's how I think it might be a little bit of different flavor. And all of my experience has been during COVID. I moved back to India right in March 2020, 2 weeks before the lockdown. So I could have had a very standout experience. But I'll still try and just share my experiences with all of you. And hopefully some of you may benefit from that. Starting off with a slightly bit of an opinion instead of my personal experience. This is something that I've often felt with a lot of my communications with friends who were in the US before I was moving back, and with the folks over here. I think there is a need to understand that we have learned how to be innovative during our PhDs and postdocs, and it is an important idea to create your own cutting edge research and not try to replicate our PhDs and postdocs. This was something that I've always had as a question from people who always asked why you want to return to India, and because you won't have that kind of research facilities. Well, you can create your own cutting edge research. And I'll give an example from the energy sector, because I'm working for Shell. There is a big push in Shell for the hydrogen business. It is definitely something that is worth looking out for. Hydrogen is a lot more expensive to produce, and it has its own benefits. But there are other sectors of energy that are more relevant for India compared to the other developed nations. The most primarily being biofuels. We have a balance of payment problem for the amount of oil that we import. We have a gargantuan problem for our waste. And we saw that. I mean, me and some of my colleagues in Shell saw that. And when there was a call for proposals for new ideas, we proposed a proposal for biofuels, and we got funded. And it's actually getting a lot of traction in Shell. Not a lot of people are working in biofuels area in the research side of Shell, and that's how you're basically creating your own niche. And we are going to do a proof of concept for the India region. So that's how basically I want to just emphasize the need for indigenizing research and not just following what is being done in your postdoc or PhD host countries or host institutions. Now, coming to the non-technical side of things that Manali mentioned. So I kind of moved my talk a bit from cultural shock to the professional development side, because I would say that this was the most shocking part for me. When I moved back, I really enjoyed the sudden vibe of confidence I felt among my peers. This was something that I had missed during my PhD. I know all of you would have experienced that during your PhD. By the end of it, you're kind of low on your confidence. You have struggled with the problem for a very long time during your postdoc or PhD. So it was very refreshing to see a lot of confidence in my peers. And that confidence was largely focused in the direction of identifying solutions, monetizing it, and creating a business. I cannot imagine the number of conversations that I've had in the past 2 years since I've been here. Every conversation leads to a business idea. We're talking about a startup. We're talking about some other startups being created by some other folks, some unicorns. Uh, it's a very vibrant place right now to just be in your mind space. And this is how I think you should be basically seeing yourself, basically creating solutions in the sense of what is creating the most impact at the moment. And in US, when I was in the US, a lot of my friends had like a template, and it's a very legitimate reason to be concerned about your visa or green card. And because you're not a permanent resident until you get a green card, and it's a long process. So within that realm of issues, you are unable to think beyond and be more confident in yourself about and your abilities. I have seen that in my friends, and I continue to have those conversations with them. And this is why I thought that this was a big change in what we talked about and what we want to do in the next 5 years. That was a big change for me. Um, Coming to the next point, which I think is a big thing when we talk about for folks moving back to India, and especially in the private sector, people talk about pay scales. Uh, I think I'm in a good position to talk about pay scales because when I was graduating, I had 2 offers in US and 2 offers from India in Bangalore. And all of the 4 were from private companies. So I think I had a choice to basically weigh those options. Although I wanted to move back to India, but I had a good sense of what would be the case if I continue to stay in the US. So in terms of purchasing power parity, pays in India are not high, but they are sufficient to sustain a family of 4. But if you have a family of 4, I don't think if you start off, you're going to be saving a lot. There would be a slightly less amount of savings. But if I replicate that same situation in the US, I think I would be in a very similar situation. There is a kind of a parity that is created because of the purchasing power that you have in the US or in India. Now, if you are earning in the US dollars or in euros and you are staying in the India, then you are a king. Then I think all of us should be taking tips from you. But otherwise, if you're staying in the country where you're earning, at the moment for PhDs, the kind of market that I got exposed to, it was good. It wasn't extraordinary. It is growing. My friends who have returned back from the US have actually got jobs in startups. They've got much better salaries than me. So I think there is a lot of scope for you to diversify your mind, not just think about a few companies, think about the startup ecosystem and be aware of that at least. There are certain things that I did not think about in terms of financial responsibilities. And I think a lot of people don't think about that during their PhD and postdoc. Investments and what you should be thinking about. In India, it is doubly important. You have an inflation of 5 to 7% rolling around for the last 10 years. You have to think about how you're going to grow whatever is in your savings bank account. And that's why I think that is a part that I kind of learned once I came back. I had a job before I moved to the US, so I did have some experience. But when you come back and you are in a different point in your life, you are basically starting a family, you have to think about the responsibilities a little more clearly. You start creating SIPs and mutual funds, and you start to think of peer-to-peer lending. And there are a lot of formal networks that have come up. Another example of the indigenized system is the digital payments. It's an extraordinary invention, and it's so awesome. I think that is something, if folks on the call are in the US, you guys are missing out. This is extraordinarily awesome. I'm enjoying that. I don't have cash for the last 2 months. It is something that you basically do learn. But yeah, it is something that you should be aware of, that this is something you need to plan out. If you get some time before you start your new career as an assistant professor or in the job, this is something you can probably spend some time thinking about. Families, I think that's why I put this at last, because this is something people always think about when they're moving back to India. This was definitely not my main reason to move back. I think it was a mix of all of the things that I just talked about, and family, of course. I fortunately got a chance because of COVID to spend most of the 2 years in Jaipur, in my hometown, with my parents. You don't get to know a lot about your parents over video call 8,000 miles away from your home. So I think this was a big change for me. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it thoroughly. People move out of their hometowns thinking that it's kind of a individualism. You kind of find your own individual identity. You want to make it on your own, but you really don't need to. And I didn't find that there was an encroachment on my individuality if I'm living at home. It was actually a lot more fun. And as I said, you really don't have to make everything on your own. There is a lot of framework. There is a lot of help available. And you just need to ask for it, and it's available. At least I'm glad that I'll be in Bangalore, not too far, easily accessible, and even my parents would be comfortable coming to Bangalore. They were not in the US. They didn't come once, even once when I was there for 6 years. It was not easy. It's a long travel and whatnot. So just those aspects of family, I think most of us are very familiar with. I think the last point, it's going to be a last slide. I think I want to just put some opinions out. And this is not related to my personal experiences. Everyone kept asking me, why do you want to return to India? I did not have a reason. I don't think I need a reason. I'm returning back to my home country. Why do I need a reason for that? The main thing that I was thinking was, maybe if I want to convey, if you were not miserable before you moved to the US or to Europe or whatever country you're currently in, if you were not miserable, then what really bugs you at that time? I'm not talking about the professional side of it. As I said, we need to think out of the black box of the cutting edge research and professional side of things. Darshana gave a really good example of what thinking out of the box means. You can create value in places that you would not even have thought of. So we don't really need a reason. Most of us are researchers on this call. We have learned to think innovatively. Why do we need to save all of that innovation just in our research? That can be applied to our personal lives. We can think critically. We can think where my education is going to create the most impact. So that's, I think, the final thought I want to conclude with. And happy to talk to anyone outside of this call. And thanks, Sci-ROI, for organizing this. This has been an amazing event.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ronak. I mean, this was really great, like knowing all of your thoughts and why you came back, and, what was going through your mind. So I just wanted to, we'll get to the questions, but before that, you all heard from our panelists and speakers today about the importance of, knowing some of the factors, right? Like making informed decisions before you return back. As Ronak mentioned about digital payment, I have no idea. So Ronak, I'm coming back to you for that in a few years. So what Sci-ROI India has done is we are going to initiate this personalized mentorship program for returning Indian diaspora. And the mentors will be, someone who has transitioned, like the speakers of today's session who have transitioned from abroad in the last decade. And we're trying to have people from diverse fields, as you saw today, someone from academia, industry, nonprofit sector, so any non-academic areas as well as different research areas. And as a mentee, if you're interested in, joining this program, you can discuss with our mentors about any research or non-research related issues. Some of them we discussed today, but we have so much more, that you can talk to them about. And this will be a virtual mode, program. Of course, like we will have mentees from all over the world who would like to go back. And our mentors will be in India, so it's a virtual mode platform, and we are trying to build this as like you can have 30-minute interactions with our mentors anytime that you would like. So you just have to pick up some times with them, and you can choose the mentors. We already have a few mentors on our website. I'm posting the link in the chat. But feel free to go through that, and mentors, if you're interested, please sign up, and we'll be opening the program to the mentees soon in the next month. So do keep an eye out for this program call. So thank you, and with that, I'll hand it over to Devesh for any Q&A we have. So
Thanks, Manali, and thank you, everyone. There are a couple of questions that are there. I think the Q&A panelists have answered many of them already. So one is directed to Dr. Shomashish. So one was, how streamlined is the process of bringing biological material back to India? Example, DNA constructs or clinical samples or any other biological material. How easy and streamlined?
So actually it is easy, and at the same time it's difficult. I'll tell you and give you examples, like to bring in plasmids, to bring in antibodies, to bring in certain chemicals, select chemicals, to bring in enzymes. It is easy. And what I did in my case, that I used or utilized World Courier, and I can give you the name. Contact this name, those who are planning to come back to India. His name is Donald Hold, H-O-L-D-E. Donald Don Hold, H-O-L-D. Holde is a senior, very up position in World Courier, and I have told him that many people would be returning back to India, help them out, and he has done it. And he makes sure that the price is much less than they would charge otherwise. I say that it's a developing thing, so be nice, and they are nice, and you will have exceptional peace of mind and security of your sensitive instrument, biological materials to be sent through them. Dr. Piyush Bihari Lal, who just came back here, he also had, and there are others who also I have referred to, and it takes just 5 days, and you can actually track it. Now, coming to biological materials, like if it is blood, it is a problem, and it also depends on which place you are shifting it to. Like if you are in certain public universities, I think it will not be a problem. But in certain private universities, we have tiers of restrictions, and you have to go through them. You have to cut, and that's why you need the institutional ethical clearance I mentioned to you about. You have to first get that, and then you have to convince that it does not contain any virus or microbes. You cannot bring in virus or microbes from any other country. Like say if it's a frozen tissue which you have done in your postdoc, and you just have to section it, and then you work on it, it can be done. If it's say like a tube of trizol where you have your mRNA from some experiments that you did, it can be done. Donald will help you in that, and I will help you in that. You cannot explicitly write everything in details. There are tricks to it, which I cannot tell you since it's being recorded, but I will help you guys with that.
Okay, thanks a lot, Shomashish. Next question is directed to Dr. Bardia. It's does your company Shell collaborate with academic professors for biofuel research?
Yeah, absolutely. So the project that I was talking about is in the computational domain. We are digitizing a lot of things. There is an entirely new facility that is in India, in the Bangalore office. It is the IH squared, a very much touted technology in Shell. A lot of work is being done on that. I'm sure there are a lot of interest among the chemical engineers working on that to work with academics. There is a collaboration. There are lots of branches of collaboration that are going on with IISc. And there is also a very dedicated effort to collect all of those branches and bring it into a very large MOU with Shell. I think there is always an interest. I know folks who actually actively work on creating those connects with academics. So happy to connect on that. We can connect after the call, and then we can take it from there.
Okay, thanks a lot, Robin. And I would like to thank all our speakers, for all the various advices you gave. And I think one topic, I would like to just, if someone can answer about bureaucracy that people face, one issue generally, when coming back to India, and then, how the chain of commands that follows, that, sometimes you have to get something signed off and all, okay, especially in the academic field, and in the government institution, okay. Are you facing any such issues, or, and how to deal with that? This is the question that came up a lot of times. So just, if someone can answer. Professor Munshi, probably. Dr. Munshi, I don't know. You're muted, Dr. Munshi.
Yeah, it's a good question and very relevant question for all of us. It depends. At times, it does take time. But one has to be patient. I would say only one thing: be patient with the system. Things have changed, but not as you expected. I did mention. So things do they happen, but sometimes there are teething problems. So be patient. I would say only one thing: be patient, and you'll make it. Okay. What happens sometimes, even the clerk will tell you, "Oh, sir is not there. So your paper will not be signed. You leave it. Then you have to go next day." And sometimes things get delayed like this. But by and large, now mindset of people has changed. Definitely, they are in a helping mode. But people are every individual is different.
Okay.
So that's
Thanks
what I would say.
Yeah, so much. Yeah, sorry to say something.
So I will say, the problem I faced and how we solved it is like, I work with transgenic mice and, mice and all these things. And I have to build this because I'm going to eventually bring those mice from here. It took me 2 years, mind-blowing 2 years, but you got to stick to it. And ma'am said, have patience. She told me when I was in Sci-ROI that you got to be patient. It's not going to be, and I never gave up. Like within 6 months, like I would have given up if I didn't have that advice, that piece of advice. So what I did is that there were quarters where they right away said that, no, we can't make it happen. Why, like that. And they didn't understand like what, and, advanced animal facilities, what are individual ventilated cages and all. So I sold them that idea. I made our dean understand what this idea is about. And within 7 seconds, you won't believe, 7 seconds, he said, yes, approved. You just got to learn how to sell the idea and help them understand, because the beauty of this RLS program is like what ma'am said. This is probably one of the best things that's happening for this country, is that there is a lot of, you'll be amazed to see the talent here. You'll be amazed to see the talent here. Those who have done their PhD here and those that medical doctors, they have ideas so brilliant. And thanks to Asim, this is the thing that Asim should take the credit for. He's sending so many people back to India.
Absolutely.
Thank you enough.
I don't get to see him. He is here, but can we see you, Asim?
I think his video is on. No.
Yeah. So
yeah.
So but they don't have access to this cutting edge technologies. You got to make them see that, and once they see that, they have the talent and the academic latent academic capability to take it forward. I was surprised by the interest here, and now like it's so much pressure. What pressure that and I'm in a medical setting, like there are like so much interest among the physicians to do advanced research, and everybody wants to see what's CRISPR, what's transgenic mice facility, and these things. And the other thing that what I feel like, if you have worked in a US environment, right? So you have been exposed to instruments, like you took them for granted. When you came here and then you want to build up, when you look at the money, it will blow your mind. So what I did is that I take a hit in myself. I didn't go for the, the American brands. I set up, most of the lab is set up through Indian equipments, machine. I rigged the system. I asked things to be fitted in, and that brought down the price, but that was not enough. And then I realized that in India, you can have all your, individual ideas, but you should also focus why you're coming back, why RLS is bringing you back, is because the talent that you have to solve India's problem. So what we did, we formed a consortium, like with one faculty who is a physician. He found the disease, but he doesn't know how to carry it forward. He comes from a physician's perspective. So we started developing a team, like me, and then another returnee was Piyush Bihari Lal, and then my wife Ranita, and then Rama Dharmela. All these are alumni of Sci-ROI. That's what I told, like, find your colleagues there. This is the best place where it will go with you for the next 15-20 years. Make that effort. I did. Rama did. Shankar Sahu, we did that. We already knew each other, and we know that we can go into a battle together. We'll take the bullets, we'll fail in grants, but we'll go at it again. And with diverse skill sets. So now I cannot get, like I asked for 1.5 crores, I'm not going to get it. I'm going to say get 50 lakhs, 70 lakhs, I'm not disclosing the amount. Piyush will get, like, say 50, 60, 70 lakhs. Ranita will get something, Rama will get something. And then we found out, like, what are the instruments that we need for our collaborative research, like for our sustenance. And I bought it, which others can use. He bought it, which I can use. And so, you pull together to make things happen. So these are the, jugars, as you say, you'll have to think of. And I think that's why you should utilize Sci-ROI to its max.
Yeah.
It won't happen anywhere else.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Shomashish, for your advice. And yeah, Dr. Munshi, you saying something?
Yeah, there's a question. It says, to all the panelists, thank you for the wonderful session. When applying for Ramalinga Fellowship, should the project be diverse from the postdoc research? Yes. See, the committee wants to see that you are going to establish yourself as an independent researcher. So I would recommend and suggest you have your own project, which is different from your postdoc. Otherwise, what committee feels, oh, he or she's carrying the legacy of his postdoc mentor. So think independently and write an independent project, but be realistic with your objectives. Don't write anything under the sky which you won't be able to do. Be practical. Do some soul searching and what can be done under Indian system and what cannot be, and who are the people work. You can contact people who are working in this area. Definitely, I'm sure they would help. But start your own new research program which you are confident at. That's what I have tried to write answers to some of the questions, but I might have missed. I'm ready for the questions.
No, I think you're good, Dr. Munshi. Yeah, thanks a lot, all the speakers, Dr. Munshi, Dr. Shomashish, Dr. Thakur, Dr. Joshi, and Dr. Bardia. I think it was a wonderful session, and all your advice, and I think it will be very helpful. And I think all our participants can contact them if they would like, or all the Sci-ROI members. Okay, thank you. And with that, we'll move on to the next session, and don't go anywhere. I think this is the same link for the next session. And this next session is about the undergraduate research mentorships in India. So I think we have all the panelists and everybody already here. So I'll hand over the session now to Manali. Okay, to go over.
Thank you to our panelists and really insightful advices, and personally really inspired by all your thoughts. So we'll move on to the next session. So we have our panelists and our moderators for the session. And I would like to invite Anushila to start the session for the undergraduate research mentorship. Over to you, Anushila.
Thanks, Manali. I'll start sharing my screen and start the presentation. Hello, everyone. Good evening, and thank you for joining us today for the final panel discussion of Sci-ROI India's virtual launch event 2022. This panel discussion, we will focus on understanding how mentored research at undergraduate level is important, and how early career researchers as well as students could benefit from undergraduate research. My name is Anushila Chatterjee, and I am the lead of program and curriculum design at Vigyan Shala International. At Sci-ROI India, me and along with my team, we are developing and trying to implement an undergraduate research initiation program that aims to develop and inspire undergraduate students to like take up research as a career. I'll introduce the program shortly, but before that, I would like to invite my colleague, Dr. Siva Sankari, to come and share with us why early career researchers are stakeholders for undergraduate research. Siva, up to you. On to you.
Yeah, hello everyone. Before we start the panel, I just want to introduce why we needed to have this session here. I have a little bit of experience when I was a lecturer in India for many undergraduates, and also here I've mentored many undergraduates during my PhD and postdoc, and so this comes with a teeny bit of personal experience as well. So usually I feel that undergraduate researchers bring in a lot of enthusiasm into the lab, because usually with the PhDs and postdocs, the lab becomes a little monotonous, and they bring in a lot of enthusiasm and fresh ideas into the lab. And they are great at networking. We usually don't discuss our small problems in experiments with a person who is in a different discipline, but they usually network. They have a huge network, so they can discuss their problems and bring in troubleshooting ideas for any experiment. This has happened to me personally many times. And if you feel you're responsible for paying forward to bring to develop a good scientific society with good scientific temperament, then we need to invest at a very young age to foster this kind of scientific temperament to the undergraduate students. So that's an important feature for considering having undergraduate students in early career research laboratories. And also, if you want to try some small projects that your PhDs won't take up, then you can then give it to your undergraduates who doesn't have any preconceived bias towards experimentation. As we get older, we don't we have these notions that if I try this, then it might not work, things like that. But undergraduates are fresh and they are ready to take up risky projects, so we can try new ideas with them. And also nowadays, it is expected of PhD scholars and postdoc scholars to have some mentoring experience in addition to the usual scientific training that we have. So it's here, I'm talking here in US, it's important to have mentoring experience for any kind of career advancement. And now in India also, according to this new national education policy, it is required that undergraduates should undergo some kind of training, and PhDs should undergo some kind of mentoring experience for their next career level. So this is with the early career researchers part. And like Anu said, when our team was discussing it, we realized a need for undergraduates to develop a kind of scientific temperament that puts them into research. So that is why, and we felt that all undergraduates are not equally equipped with this scientific temperament in order to get into the next level. So that is why we are trying to put together this program called REACT, and I'll leave it to Anu to take over to explain the program in detail.
Thank you, Siva. That gives me a smooth way to the upcoming slide. I present to you Sci-ROI India's REACT, or Research Activation Program for building opportunities for the future STEM scientists. So REACT will be an online 6-month-long mentored research initiation program aimed to democratize access to research opportunities to undergraduates, especially undergraduates coming from institutes with limited research resources. The purpose of REACT is to develop a scientific mindset and provide capabilities to undergraduates to pursue research as a career. We will help them understand how research works and provide them with opportunities how research could be taken up as a career after they finish and continue. They can motivate them to take up higher studies and then pursue research. So who will be our target undergraduates? We are focusing on first and second year undergraduate students in STEM, so any science, technology, engineering, and mathematics fields. We will prioritize students who are coming from institutes that does not have extensive research opportunities. We do recognize that there is a huge gender gap in STEM fields, and we want to achieve a gender balanced cohort for REACT's program. And why do you think that undergraduates would benefit from participating in REACT? So we think that by participating in REACT, it will help them to understand how to think like a scientist, how science is conducted or understand how knowledge is generated, and understand that they can be creators of knowledge rather than just consumers of knowledge. Gaining an understanding of research could also change their perspective on how to deal with challenges or failures, because I think research teaches you that challenges are just opportunities to ask new questions. You reformulate your hypothesis, you come up with alternate experiments and things like that. Of course, together, research gives you skills like 21st century skills such as critical thinking, problem solving, communication, collaboration. And since this is a mentored research program, the undergraduates will interact with the current scientists in training who can advise them about different careers in STEM and probably not just research, and help them devise a plan for their steps after graduation. Now, going to mentors, who will be our mentors? We want to have senior PhD scholars and postdoctoral fellows who have an understanding of the Indian higher education system as our mentors. We are looking for individuals who are motivated and committed to give 6 months like commitment to the program, and they should be interested in doing interdisciplinary research and preferably know at least one Indian language, just to reduce the language barrier in communication. The mentor-mentee ratio will be maximum of 4 mentees per mentor. And again, we want to, like, I think a lot of us have had questions like, should we have faculty as mentors or should we have PhDs or postdocs as mentors? We thought PhDs and postdocs will benefit from gaining this mentoring experience because it will help them develop their identity as a scientist. It will help them understand what could be the possible roles and responsibilities of being a scientist, especially if you're going to academia. And when you are, as a PhD or postdoctoral student or a scholar, when you are explaining your research to an undergraduate, a fresh undergraduate, you would have to actually gain a deeper understanding of your own work and be able to explain that to an undergraduate. You would have to break it down. So improve your teaching communication skills. You'll develop an understanding of what skills you are good at, what are your interests, what are your shortcomings. And of course, that would give you a clarity on what career path you want to take beyond your PhD and postdoc. And together, these will enhance your CV because you'll be able to note these experiences in your CV. So just to give you a brief idea of what the program structure looks like. We'll have a core curriculum where all the mentees will attend these monthly webinars on topics related to research initiation by established researchers across the globe. And we'll have a mentor-led curriculum where mentees would learn, for example, how to read scientific literature, understand the process of scientific inquiry and scientific methodology, either using frugal techniques at home or some virtual lab techniques. And of course, they will, at the end of the program, they will have to communicate their scientific endeavors through oral as well as written communication. With that, I would like you to meet our team who has been working behind the scene, starting with our youngest member, Mr. Aniruddha Chattaraj. He is a graduate student at University of Connecticut. He's a coordinator at REACT. I am Anushila, and I am the lead coordinator of REACT. Manali, I don't think needs any more introduction. She is currently the Global STEM Operations Director and Coordinator of REACT. Without her, I don't think we would have reached where we are today. Not just the Sci-ROI virtual event, even for the REACT program. So thank you, Manali. Siva just talked before me. She's a postdoctoral researcher at MIT. And also a coordinator at REACT. And also looking to transition to faculty positions soon. And finally, Dr. Sriram. Sriram is an associate professor at Azim Premji University and coordinator at REACT. And Sriram will be moderating the panel discussion that that is coming up next. Sriram, would you like to start introducing our panel?
Thanks, Anushila. It's my pleasure and honor to introduce the panelists for today's discussion. So we have four panelists who are currently attending. Dr. Shomashish is not currently available. So let me first introduce the person who I know the best, who is also my colleague, Jayant Vyasanekare. So Jayant is an assistant professor in physics at Azim Premji University, and he's interested broadly in celestial mechanics and quantum physics. Apart from what he's done in his sort of research interests, one of the reasons why we have invited him is that he has been associated with what is called the Research REAP program, which is organized or at least conducted in the Bangalore Planetarium, whose aims are similar to the kind of program that we're aiming to start. But of course, it's held in the planetarium. It's not a virtual platform. Our second panelist is Dr. Karinika Sinha, who's joining us from ISER Pune. She's a mathematician whose interests are in number theory and various aspects of number theory. And she also has very extensive mentoring experience, has, of course, advised both masters and PhD theses, but also she's interested in broadly science communication, has written several articles in newspapers and journals for more lay audiences. And not until recently, she also used to, or maybe already she still does, used to write a quite popular blog which is of interest to a lot of people who are interested in coming back to Indian academia, called Academic Gardens. Our third panelist is Dr. Lakshmi Permalsamy, who is from Sri Ramachandra Institute of Higher Education and Research. She's interested in cellular signaling networks in cancer, and also brings with her extensive mentoring experience of undergraduate mentoring experience, including participating in the CSIR summer research training program in 2020. Our final panelist is Dr. Urmila Kulkarni-Kale. She's from the Savitribai Phule Pune University, and she specializes in bioinformatics and is one of the pioneers of bioinformatics in India. And again, a very distinguished career in bioinformatics, including helping out with setting up curricula and other processes in bioinformatics all over India, and has conducted several international workshops in this field. So I've tried to keep the introductions short so that we can have a more extensive discussion. So in terms of the format that we are going to do, at least this is what I would like to do. And of course, the panelists are free to interject as needed. But we have identified 3 themes which we feel are going to be most important for the audience. One is, of course, what is the importance of undergraduate research and mentoring? And then we would love for our panelists to share their any mentoring tips and strategies, and we'd like to have a discussion finally on what can institutions, mentors, and undergraduates do for initiating research-based practices. So what I have, we've sort of come up with certain questions, and so what I would do is pose the question and maybe call a few panelists who I feel maybe have sort of maybe to start with some discussion on the topic. In order to sort of keep the discussion flowing, I would, of course, move on to a second question. But if anybody, the audience, or even the panelists want to add anything or have a question, please feel free to put them in the chat, and we will take them at an appropriate place. So, without further ado, the first question, which is related to the importance of undergraduate research, is I would like to pose to the panelists and maybe over their career, I mean, how do they see the state of undergraduate research evolving in India over the, let's say, even past decade, or even put their career as they would like. So I would like to maybe ask Jan to start with that question, maybe followed by Dr. Urmila.
Yeah, thanks, Sriram. So in terms of evolution of how undergraduate research is seen in the country, I would say it is kind of becoming more and more important. If I recall our UG days, it was like undergraduate was seen as, after 10th standard, there is 11th standard, after 11th, there is 12th, and then there is 13, 14, 15. That's how UG was kind of seen. However, nowadays UG is kind of treated at a different level than what happens until 12th. So it's super important from the student's perspective to explore what is out there and what is it, what does it mean to actually contribute something to the field, and that also gives a nice feedback to what should they focus in the typical classroom, what is important and what is not, how do they structure their knowledge, experience, skills. I think it's a welcome evolution that there is more and more emphasis on research, and particularly in NEP, there is, I think, all students who kind of complete their 4 years have to go through an internship, which is also a welcome move, I would say.
Thank you, Jan.
Yeah.
Dr. Mila, please.
Thank you. So, undergraduate research has so much of importance, and it is now getting deeply rooted in our education ecosystem, as I have seen, over the past 25 to 30 years. The system is gearing up through NEP and other initiatives, as well as, to even the professionals in terms of scientists, researchers, and teachers are also, I think, have gone a long way, and I see a shift in terms of their thinking to have, undergraduate students in the lab and to train them, to nurture them as future scientists. So NEP is going to give a lot of opportunities for undergraduate students to join the labs, have a sneak peek at how research is carried out in universities, central universities, in institutions of eminence, and over the entire ecosystem of education in India. And at the same time, when mentees have a lot of opportunities, I think mentors also have a lot of opportunities to have these young, undergraduates to be inducted in the lab, and then as you say, catch them young and groom them. So not necessary that every mentee who would join a lab would turn out to be a researcher or a scientist or an academician. That's not the goal. Even if we can impart critical thinking, problem-solving approach, rational thinking, to be able to ask questions and to be responsible citizens in whatever they do, I think having them in the lab and investing our time with them would be fulfilled. I hand it over to you and look forward to other, panelists to make their points. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Urmila. So I would also request Dr. Kanika and Dr. Lakshmi to chime in, both to the original question which I had posed and the second question which Dr. Urmila partially answered. One is, how do they see the state of undergraduate research evolving in India? And secondly, how would exposure to research benefit both undergraduates and let's say early career researchers who might be coming to India potentially from outside, but even otherwise maybe starting their academic career in India? How is this kind of tapping this potential? How is that useful, or what are the benefits?
So can I go first?
Doctor, sure.
Yeah. So I would actually like to start with an example. It's my favorite example of how undergraduate research benefits both the mentor and the mentees. So I think many people here would have heard about the famous Agrawal-Kayal-Saxena primality tests, which is, without exaggeration, one of the most important discoveries in mathematics of this century. And it was actually an undergraduate project which was undertaken by two students, Nitin Saxena and Neeraj Kayal, under the supervision of Professor Manindra Agrawal at IIT Kanpur. So, and the beauty of this project was, so Professor Agrawal had been working on these types of questions for a long time, but because this time he was training undergraduates, together they came up with very fresh insights, very fresh approach to ideas from a field called sieve methods in number theory. And they solved a very important problem, and the entire mathematical community was stunned and so impressed with what happened. And okay, leaving aside how illustrious the result was, both the mentees went on to have successful careers, and one of them went into academia, the other one went into industry. So it's not as if undergraduate research is only meant to help you become a PhD who will become a professor. There are many routes, and this, as Professor Urmila pointed out, this just trains people to think independently, critically, become responsible citizens, have an awareness of how science is done, and then take it to many different fields. So yeah, I wanted to mention this example. And like I said, not every undergraduate project will be as illustrious, but we have seen, I work at an institute which takes it very seriously. In fact, our students in the final year exclusively work on research projects. So even if a project does not lead to illustrious results, it often gives a student an idea of what goes behind a career in scientific research. So at ICERS, where we have seen that very often the project provides a foundation for PhD topics later and a successful career. So For example, I think the earliest ICERs started in 2006, 2007, and the students who graduated from the earliest batches are now joining as faculty members at various universities and institutions in India. And we have seen that their PhD work was actually motivated by work that they did in their undergraduate projects, and they took it forward. In many cases, students moved out of academia, and it may feel like the undergraduate project did not have an effect on their future career, but not really. I mean, like, they learned how to think independently. The 5th year gave them the time and space to transition into a mature person who can take and own their decisions. And, even if they work in a different field, either industry or in some cases, students have gone into, government service. I think it's amazing that these students had foundations in science, and they will be able to use this awareness to take our country forward as far as science and technology is concerned. So yeah, this is what I wanted to say about the importance of undergraduate mentorship.
Thank you, Dr. Kaninita, for the example and the optimism that you have shown. Dr. Lakshmi, if you can add or your thoughts on this issue, that would be great.
Yes, so this session, I feel very strongly is a very important one to discuss, especially in the current scenario where we do see in our undergraduates, when they come from the school to college, there is a huge jump. So in terms of what concepts we are asking them to comprehend, be it subjective, if we could make the whole experience of do it and learn it yourself, which is what research is about, that may be a much more engaging perspective for the student. This I'm saying both as a student 15, 20 years ago, when I've learned I learned by being in the lab. Thankfully, my undergraduate institute gave me that opportunity, and it is the reason I'm sitting here as a scientist come an educator. The additional thing is when it will also, if the students are engaged, if the undergraduates are engaged in a research experience, it gives them, it actually increases their engagement in their undergraduate studies. They will look at concepts much more clearly. It will engage them much more better in their actual quote-unquote academic pursuits. It also would help them give certain practical skills like problem solving, communication, information synthesis, which in the current structured other kind of coursework that they do may not be very useful. But when they're engaging with a mentor, a research mentor, or a teacher who's taking them through the research experience, either as a project-based learning, these skill sets become something that they can gain with much more confidence because they're going to do it themselves. The other thing is exactly what the other panelists have been reiterating. It is whether they're going to be in research consistently or are they going to go to any other profession, the other alternate career paths, which irrespectively we are going to broaden the higher skilled personnel that's going to be available for the country. So in that perspective, this undergraduate research becomes very, very important. And I'm just going to highlight, just going to reiterate two things. One is for the student, when they finish an undergraduate research experience, whether they do it as a last year project, which the current educational system emphasizes, if they can see it not as a paper publishing exercise or a CV enhancing exercise, but more so if we can orient them, we can mentor them to think of it as an exercise to how do you think scientifically. If we can inculcate the scientific methodology in them as mentors, I am sure that they would stand to gain both professionally and personally. This skill set will enhance them for the career. It will also give a very authenticate experience of research, right? So research, like everyone said, it gives them a very early on idea. If they want to go in the field of research, it gives them about what research is, the hardships present in research. It gives them real life example. They live through it to know what it would be. But even otherwise, the in totality, whatever they learn here. So we have our graduates who finish. So ours, I've only been teaching for 3 years, been a hardcore researcher before that. But even in that, the students who have passed out, they come back and tell us about the skill set they learned in their final projects. And it is never just about the science of it. It's more about, mom, in the difficult situation, when we didn't have access, when we didn't get the product, we had to innovate, we had to think on our toes. And that helped me in the interview. And that helped me in securing the job. Ultimately, although we're talking here about research and enhancing research personnel in the country, we also need to address the whole scenario that in our country, the whole percentage of students who are only looking at jobs, post-undergraduate. So it's also these skill set that they can pick up when they do these questions on their own. Coming to the mentors, the excitement that an undergraduate brings in, the different perspective an undergraduate brings in, and also the inhibition that they don't have to ask a question. They don't have any inhibition to ask a question to you, which your PhD student or a postdoc may not ask. Just because some kind of an authority is established, although it shouldn't be there in a system, but an undergraduate student most likely would not have that inhibition. So they would ask you why you're doing what you're doing. Explaining in simpler terms would help your whole laboratory to understand the science you're doing way better. Also, they bring in they sometimes help you start a new trajectory in lab. It's happened with me. I have a fantastic undergraduate student who's currently in her 3rd year. She has been consistently talking to me about neuroscience. I've never worked on neuroscience. I've worked on signaling networks. But because of her, I engaged with another neurosurgeon, and we're trying to do a project for her. So it piques my interest too. So I'm broadening my perspective in my career. And that also happens. It's a complete give and take mechanism where you can mentor, but the mentees also end up mentoring you of how you go about in your career. So it's a complete give and take engagement.
Thank you, Dr. Lakshmi. So if I may summarize some of the points that have emerged, even though our panelists are from very diverse institutions and very different disciplines, it's very interesting to see some very important common themes emerging in their reflections. First of all, I think both Jayant and Urmila, and I'm sure others, all 4 panelists will agree with this, that the nature and importance of undergraduate research is changing in the country, both because a lot more emphasis is being put on research, but also I guess the imagination of the undergraduate education itself is changing through NEP and other initiatives. Secondly, all 4 pointed out in different ways that it is essentially a mutually beneficial relationship for both the student and the mentor. Students, of course, get, not only real skills in the discipline, but also certain life skills, including critical thinking, thinking on their feet, and so on. And of course, for mentors, they get an opportunity to visit or revisit things that they would not have done, and also maybe see things in a perspective that they would not be able to because it's being viewed by a fresh set of eyes and new individual. So again, very thanks to all 4 panelists for pointing all of these. So I would like to move on to the second topic or the second theme that we wanted to explore. Now that at least we hopefully have made the strong case that undergraduate research is important, I would like to move on to hear from the panelists about certain mentoring strategies, both that they have used and also certain issues that we think might be important in the Indian context. So again, I will go in some order of the 4 panelists, but the first question is maybe from their own experience, if they can talk about how what are the strategies that they use to initiate undergraduates into research in their particular discipline, or and what kind of, especially how do they sort of try to rope in or promote the undergraduates to take up research problems at an early stage, even though it may not be required, let's say, for their project, for the curriculum. So again, maybe I'll start with Jayant and then we'll go in the same order.
Yeah, all right. So, so there are few strategies I believe are very beneficial for the project to run. First of all, at undergraduate level, students will be kind of, for the first time, will be exposed to something professional. So along with whatever scientific skills the project demands, it also demands to a large extent some organizational skills. For example, it requires some good amount of organization in terms of time. It's not like kind of, I mean, for a good professional research, some kind of progress at regular intervals is needed, and it's kind of students should take that seriously, because when mentors invest their time, it should come from students that this project has been taken seriously. So some kind of mentoring on time management is, I think, crucial. And the organization also extends to file management. So I'm a theoretical physicist, so it requires me and my students to write codes and requires them us to check them and so on. And what is most important is to have a clean record of how a particular code evolved, and to maintain backup, and to clearly, there will be like thousands of files generated, and how to organize the particular thing. That itself is a great learning experience as a researcher. And some help that the students will come with some naive ideas of, oh, this is how computer has to happen, and there will be some final dot something, and then there will be super final, mega final files. And at the end of the day, if they want to track something, it will be difficult. I think that is something that we can contribute. And the other point is, as and when some new stuff comes in, it is better if it gets documented and typed out at regular stages. In fact, I would say my students to come up with a thesis format right on day one, and then you keep filling different chapters as you kind of discover more and more, so that there is no loss of continuity at any time, and there is a clean trial of how the project is being developed. And we should encourage students to attend seminars. Typically in all good institutes, there will be some weekly science seminars or something of that sort. And whether it is something that is closely related to what the student is working on, or even if it is remotely related, or if it is completely unrelated, students should be encouraged to attend. And many students at that age say that, okay, I am not understanding, it's too much beyond my level and so on. And only when students get to attend more and more, they kind of figure out how to get things from a talk, and what to focus, and what are uninteresting details, and what is the main heart of something. And another crucial thing is, as a researcher, one should kind of take responsibility for whatever results one generates. Every time someone may not be monitoring whether what is done is correct, and so on. Oneself has to come up with some checks to make sure that something is correct and so on. So that responsibility is crucial. But as students, because they are starting for the first time, it is perhaps strategically beneficial if we pretend as if they are given responsibility, but at the same time we are kind of doing some kind of check to make sure they are not producing something, that they are not in the wrong direction. And of course, the direction is, of course, that's a very broad aspect. Even with respect to details, it's important that we also kind of parallelly run through, so that they kind of know when they could have corrected, and then they could have made cross checks and so on. And the last point I would like to make is, in certain cases, I have seen students taking a research forward in a way that they follow the instructions given by their mentors. And that is not beneficial to the students at all. So that will kind of train them up, perhaps at the best, as good clerks, I would say. But as scientists, they should be kind of encouraged to ask new questions. Solving a given question once it's a cleanly posed question is kind of routine, and many students get trained for that, and people will do it. And to ask a good creative question is a big challenge. And I think whatever room students get to ask new questions is, I think, a good strategy to help them in getting started. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Jayant. Yeah. Thank you, Jayant, for wonderfully stating, importance of time management, importance of good laboratory practices, ethics, and, in general, emphasis on producing or sort of inculcating good research practices and to encourage them to be independent scientists or thinkers rather than just being technicians or the clerks, as you mentioned. So I'll take these points forward and would like to, speak from the perspective of both the mentors as well as mentees. When I started mentoring, what I realized that the most schools do not teach how to mentor. Okay, so they don't give any formal training with respect to how to start a lab, how to build a group, how to build capacity, how to build teams, how to motivate, young students at different levels of their career, or, how to manage resources, how to network and collaborate, how to handle failures, how to mitigate challenges, and, how to plan the outreach on social media, let's say. As you start mentoring, especially when I started, I work in the field of bioinformatics, which is one of the STEM research area, an interdisciplinary research area. We were one of the first, to enter this area when the word bioinformatics or computational biologies were just being heard on the scientific horizon. We learned, there were no books, there were no teachers, but how we learned by reading the research papers, then downloading those algorithms or the programs, compiling them in debuggers, watch how the variables flow, and then back map it onto the research paper to understand or crack the algorithm. And we have had that enormous joy of almost, discovering or rediscovering a lot of scientific methods and databases. And that is how, slowly over the years, I developed, and along with me, I think many of my colleagues have developed, and there will be so many parallels when we say that we try to become mentors. So mentoring, there is no age, and it's not gender dependent. As a PhD student, you can mentor undergrads. As a postdoc, you can mentor undergrad and PhD student. As a scientist, you have, the whole hierarchy down the line to mentor, and then it is very important, I feel, based on my experience of 25 to 30 years, that it's very important to set the goals and expectations right when you accept a student for mentoring. Okay, it is also very important to normalize free and open discussion between mentors and mentees. I think in Indian culture, there is this aspect of of respect. And out of respect, students, the way they are trained through the school system, hesitate to ask questions. But first thing that we have to undo when students come to universities is to tell them it is great to ask questions. Please ask questions. No question is a silly question. And when they ask questions, the mentees ask the question, mentors also, grow. They learn to answer questions coming from different students, different perspective, different disciplines, and so on and so forth. It is also very important for mentors to establish a very comfortable, inclusive environment with mutual respect and trust, because only when you do so, they will grow to have that as a foundational values, and then that is passed on to next generation. So there is no need. I feel one of the aspects that we in Indian academia need to worry about, there is no need to feel insecure at any point of time in your career, and you have to just assure n number of times to your mentees, to your colleagues, that there is an equal opportunity for all of us to grow. We perform as a group, we grow as a group. There is no competition. I'm sure all of you might have heard those stories of cockroaches pulling each other's down, and things like, or crabs pulling each other down. I think gone are those days. All of us understand importance of importance of teamwork. And I think if we want a radical shift in Indian academia, we have to establish this trust, mutual trust, and help our younger generation feel very secure. As mentees, I think for us, every student should matter. They come from different backgrounds. And I feel, at least what I have done so far, that I look at the strength of the student rather than identifying, his or her weaknesses. So you appreciate, you help the student charter a growth plan on the basis of his or her strength. And you slowly keep supplementing so that they overcome some of the limitations or some of the problems that they need to work on. So and without having them felt that you are working on them to sort of you're trying to help them improve or something like that. I think it should happen very naturally and organically in the lab. And once you set the culture of the lab, I think it just passes on from generation to generation. And Jayanta has very beautifully mentioned importance of obstacles and how you address them to build a supportive ecosystem. We also need to pay attention to physical and mental health of our mentees, and most important, tell them that they should enjoy life, they should enjoy working in the labs, because unless and until they derive sheer joy, I don't think they will be imbibing or inculcating this passion for science and passion for discovery. From the mentees' point of view, if you allow me to speak for a couple of minutes, I would like to state that we have to I don't say it's not that we are going to preach and help them develop certain skill set, but we have to very very softly in the background help them develop certain skill set to survive in academia, to survive in industry, or survive in this world, and to be able to ask relevant questions to solve some of the critical problems. So, you have to entrust upon empathy, be empathetic towards them, be compassionate. You need to appreciate them a lot. I think people perform better on appreciation than on, pointing out faults or sort of, telling them you did not do this right. You have to watch out for your tone, your language, especially when you are dealing with young children. They shouldn't be hurt in any fashion. And then I feel that we as mentors need to also pay attention to the diversity and inclusivity. We should be open with respect to these two aspects, and mental health of students. I think there should be a transparent, continuous communication between the lab members with mentors, between the mentors and mentees, and I think that would help them grow. And one last point I want to emphasize is importance of communication. What I have observed over the years in university, that our students hesitate to ask questions, they hesitate to write, come up with the drafts. So importance of communication, right from how to write emails to how to email etiquettes, to how to come up with drafts, how to modify the drafts, why you shouldn't be stuck with the first draft that you have ever written, and why papers or theses undergo several revisions and versioning. They need to understand that. They also need to understand, and we need to sort of prepare them, preempt them, that they should be prepared for rejections. And when a paper get rejected, let us say for a young undergraduate or PhD student, or for that matter to a colleague, so it's paper that is rejected. Don't take it personally. If sometimes when kids are young and we sort of no matter how much in a healthy fashion you try to point out certain limitations, they don't see that we are discussing with respect to their work and their ability to work, so they take it personally. So I think that is another aspect we as a mentor need to deal with young mentees. So and also allow them to ask questions, them criticize you, and that would make I feel an impactful ecosystem where both mentees and mentors would thrive and progress. So over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Urmila. Since Jayant mentioned time management, I have been informed we have around 30 minutes left. So we'll try to be a little bit more mindful maybe of the time. But I also wanted to take this opportunity to introduce our fifth speaker who just joined, panelist, Dr. Shiba Vasu. She's from a neuroscientist who works in CSR, and for the purpose, from the perspective of this panel, she has been involved with the project project-oriented biology education at JNC.
Can you hear me clearly? Very, very sorry to everyone that I joined so late. Please accept my apologies. I got stuck with something and I suddenly remembered that I was supposed to be in this meeting. Very sorry.
Yeah.
I thought maybe, I'm not sure who are the other people who are listening. I thought since I have been involved in these fellowship programs for undergraduate students, I thought my role would be to inform the audience about such possibilities if there are young PIs who have just joined and are not aware of these. So the Jawaharlal Nehru Center has been offering summer fellowships to undergraduates for a long time, very long time. Even as an undergraduate myself, it's probably the flagship program of the center, and also it is probably the earliest in this country. So these fellowships are basically meant for BSc students and also for first year MSc students. They apply very early, like as early as October or November, and then the applications get screened and they are allotted mentors all over the country. So what usually happens is that us biology faculty members or physics and chemistry faculty members sit and look at these applications, and knowing other people who are studying, who are doing physics or chemistry or biology research, we allot students that have been selected to these various people. It's mostly by people we know or whose website we are familiar with and so on. But young PIs often we don't know because they're not in our network. So it's a good idea for these young PIs to look out for such fellowships. JNCSR fellowship is only one. Besides that, there is this tri-academy fellowships. So previously, each of the Indian academies were offered. So there are 3 of them, and each of them would offer summer fellowships. But now they've all come together to form this tri-academy fellowships that is mainly run by the Indian Academy of Science in Bangalore. And they offer a very large number of undergraduate fellowships. And they make it a point when they select applicants to not only match their subject interest, but also try to put them in a city that's not their own. So the idea is you're not, staying at home and going to this lab and coming, but you actually are forced to go to another city in another part of the country. So it's not only about learning in the lab, but also getting the chance to, now be out of your home and be involved in research in a much more immersive way. So besides that, also the TIFR has summer fellowships. So I think this is something that young PIs may not know, and it's a good idea for them to look out for. And also to reach out to these organizations, for example, the academy, and register themselves as being willing to mentor undergraduate students. And also, in fact, there are programs for mentoring or offering mentorship to college teachers who are also always looking out for such opportunities. So these 2 things are available. I don't know if there's anything else, because I know you all have discussed a lot. So in terms of information, I thought this is a good thing to pass on.
Thank you, Dr. Vasu. So we were discussing certain tips and strategies that mentors will follow for their mentoring undergraduates in their labs or groups. So, but maybe what I would like to add is we've heard from Jayant and Dr. Urmila about certain things that they have done, but it may also, our audience might also like to know some of the challenges that our mentors might encounter and how they have addressed, including maybe language issues. Not everybody is proficient in English, and how do mentors how have they addressed these challenges? So maybe I will ask Dr. Kaninika to go first, and then Dr. Lakshmi, and maybe Dr. Vasu can go after that.
Yeah, so firstly, I think Jayant and Urmila both summarized really nicely several mentoring tips. And I guess the main things were about being organized and being very patient and encouraging. And so this brings us to the kind of challenges that mentors face. So to address the first one that you talked about, language issues, I think what you really need here is lots and lots and lots of patience, because it's not the student's fault that they are not so comfortable with the language. And if you are particularly encouraging them to give regular talks or keep documenting their work, then the one thing that you have to do on a regular basis is take whatever they are writing, go line by line, point out corrections to them. And my experience has been that in the first 2 weeks, it's a laborious task because you have to keep pointing out lots of errors, but students also pick up quickly. They are very eager to learn. And then as time passes, the frequency of mistakes reduces, and it becomes an enhancing experience for both the student and the mentor. The other challenge that I faced actually particularly pertains to the last 2 years. So all the students, as of March 2020, all students went home, and many of them were taking online classes for the first time. It was causing them burnout. In addition, they wanted to learn something extra in the summer. Project students had to finish their projects. In many cases, I felt that some of my students were actually mentally affected by just having to be in a room and not really being able to go out. It was really affecting their mental health, because there were students when they started out with me at ICER in 2019, when they were in their third year, they were extremely eager. They had lots of questions, lots of insights. And during the pandemic, I noticed that they would just be quiet. I would be doing most of the talking. So I controlled my urge to become impatient or judge them for it, because it was it's one of the most difficult situations that we have all collectively gone through. And so I took the lead there, that I thought, okay, if they are finding it difficult to catch up, let me just keep doing what I can. So either on the board or on my notebook, I would just keep showing them calculations, and they caught on gradually. And one of them was doing his master's project with me, and he did very nice things towards the end of his program. So yeah, that is the other challenge I thought I'll mention. This what the challenges that the pandemic brought us. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Kanika. Dr. Lakshmi.
So Dr. Jayan, Dr. Urmila, and Dr. Kanika have actually covered most of the aspects of it. So I'll just add 2 cents to it with what I have tried to do to engage the students or to even interest them in the research perspective. The one thing I do is whenever I take a course for an undergraduate course, then either at the tail end or the middle of the course, I would ask them to choose topics that interested them. Instead of giving them the topics to talk on, I'll ask them to choose the topics that interested them and ask them to present something, either what they read in the newspaper or, so for example, when COVID happened, if there was a course on instrumentation, then I asked them to pick out all the latest innovations that happened and it's reported in the news. And then we will discuss that in the class. How do they approach it? And that brought out even students who would not speak generally or ask questions in class. And then they would come and talk to you later. And when even you don't need to tell them that the hackathon is happening. They would come and say, "Ma'am, there's a hackathon happening. Do you think, can I go with this idea and apply?" So the small things of engaging them in conversation in class, taking real life examples, making them suggest real life examples, and then proceeding with it has helped me. Otherwise, so I teach core biomedical students. So when I teach physics, they usually shut out. But if I do this, then they'll ask questions. And then with the class, then they would understand it also better. So what I've learned from the undergraduate is, if they like, if you allow them to choose what they like in your spectrum of what you're working on, if you discuss with them what all is your area of interest, and you allow them to read on it a bit and develop what question they can ask, they respond well. Instead of saying, "This is your project, you should do from this to start to end," that has a lot of resistance. But if you allow them to open out a little bit and gradually help them form the question that they have to test, they have given phenomenal initial observations for the lab. So that's one thing I would actually say. You facilitate for them to initiate the questions and just be around to help them think in direction and help and tell them you're available. Sometimes they get lost because of the volume of what they have to read maybe. So you structure it for them and keep a regular meeting time. Every week, meet them at consistently the same time. Monitor the progress, give them feedback. In this case, I would agree with Dr. Sinha. The language barrier, what I do is I try to tell them, if it's a scientific concept for them to present, I would tell them, do it in your native language to me. Whatever pitch you want to give, you do it in your native language to me. We will then deal with writing it in English or presenting it in English. Initially, you understand the concept and you present it to me in your language, so that you let me at least understand, or you'll have the freedom to present it completely to your ability. And every week, when we give them the short assignments of what they read, what they interpreted, if they can write it and send it to you, if you can just do a little bit of hand-holding in the initial time for the communication, point them out to places where they can learn from for the communication, they do wonders. they really want to do. They really want to learn. When they've come to you, they sustainably send you those write-ups, means they want to change. They want to learn in that direction. And if we are patient, then they respond quite well. And COVID, as Dr. Sinha said, has been a major problem in their thing, and exactly what she said. We have to be patient with them. We should understand we ourselves at our age are undergoing a lot of paradigm shifts. For them, this has been, we've taken away the joy of college from them. The COVID has removed the joy of college, meeting friends, speaking on the peer group is completely lost. So a bit patience with them. It will take a while to come out of it. So if you can be patient and constantly boosting their morale, engage with them in a way like a parent would do in terms of being there for them. If you can build that rapport, they respond quite well. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Lakshmi. Dr. Shiva, if you can add anything to this discussion, but there's also a question asked by one of the audience members, which is specific for JNCSR, and I don't know if it's factually correct, that the question is that during the pandemic, the POP program has not been conducted. Can this be done online, or are there any plans to conduct online?
Maybe my internet is unstable, so I'll turn my video off and I'll continue speaking. Okay, check. Okay, so check. You can hear me, right? Check.
Yes.
Okay, nice. So indeed, that was correct. In fact, we went through the screening of applications for both POBE as well as summer research fellowships. But when the pandemic struck, there was no way we could conduct it, because POBE means having students. So the POBE program, just so everyone knows, it's different from the summer research fellowships. Here, students only up to 8 to 10 students are selected when they are in their first year of bachelor's, and then they come first summer, second summer, third summer. So they spend 3 summers at JNCSR, at the end of which they get a diploma. So that's how this program is structured. Now that means that students have to come and stay on campus. With our own students not being allowed on campus, it was just impossible for us to conduct it on site. Nevertheless, what the program coordinators did was, they said that those who have been selected and are now in second and third years, they can engage online with their mentors. So that's how it was told to all the students. Talk to your mentors. Mentors will guide you through some maybe reading project or some kind of online interactions. Sometimes some people even did some computational work and so on. The same thing happened even in my own group. This year, I was just told by our dean that they are planning to set off, even though it's pretty late, because we usually by this time already have selected and our lists are all final. But now we are in fact going to initiate the program. So this is what I was told verbally. An official communication has not yet come. But the expectation is that we will start again, and this year hopefully still be able to hold the summer programs.
Thank you. So in the interest of time, I will move on to our third theme, which was about what can institutions, mentors, and undergraduates do. But I would just pose one question, and one which we wanted to also hear from the panelists. So I'll combine both and maybe panelists can give their views. So the question I have is, in a way, given the way the REACT has been thought of, which is the undergraduate mentorship program that we hope to start, as a way of democratizing access to research opportunities. Our question is, how can we involve more undergraduates from underrepresented students or underrepresented universities, or universities which don't necessarily have facilities, even though the students may be curious and capable, but they just don't have the opportunity? How can we expand that kind of opportunity? And any advice that they would like, given their experience, for the program before we start in earnest soon. So I'll pick a different order. Maybe Dr. Kanika Sinha, you can start first, and then
Sriram. So actually, I was thinking, 2 decades ago when I was a student, the idea of doing workshops or summer programs for students, just learning programs, that itself was new. So at that time, programs like MTTS and Tata Institute's Visiting Student Program, they all started. And I think it's amazing that now that we are catching on to undergraduate research in a big way, the REACT program is trying to do something similar, but with a much bigger goal of undergraduate mentorship. So I congratulate you for this idea. So I think the main challenge would be to select the students who would benefit most from it, right? So for example, students who are at ICERs, some of the central universities, etc., already have access to facilities and trainings in undergraduate mentorship. The idea is to get students from colleges which don't provide them this facility. And I suppose the main challenge would be for the organizers to select students. In our time, when as a college student, when I started applying to summer schools, my professors at college did not even know how to write recommendation letters, which were required for our application. So they would just say things like, oh, you write yourself, I will just sign. And I suspect that this again might happen, so I'm sorry, I'm not really offering any solutions, but I think this might be a big challenge you would face, and it would be great if other panelists can suggest how to overcome this.
Yeah, I think that I see two hands raised. Maybe Anushila, you can answer first, and then.
I just wanted to take up Dr. Sinha's point, is that we actually thought about this barriers that, a lot of the students were coming from tier 2 or 3 universities might not have mentors who write them the correct recommendation letters that they deserve, or we might end up selecting students like the wrong students, basically. So we don't have a requirement for recommendation letters. We have specific questions that are trying to gauge their interest in their scientific temper mostly, and their understanding of if they're curious or investigating.
Thank you. Dr. Shiva, you had your hand raised, so I don't know if you wanted to
so
add something.
First, I thought because we've been doing this screening of these forms for so many years, and over the years, sadly, we get like 300, 400 applications for a really small handful of awards that are given out. So it is really a big challenge. And our biology faculty, we are sometimes, there are 12 of us, sometimes, about 8 or 10 eventually manage to get on that day to meet and screen through these applications. And unfortunately, we do this thing about sorting them first by just marks. So of course, before that, what we do is we divide them by geography. So there's this north, south, east, west. And we know that typically the south, there's the largest. So you'll see the largest bundle is from the south and the west. Okay. And there are smaller numbers in the, south and north, east and west, the numbers are usually small. And even when they are there, we know certain places where all those applications will come from. So we factor in the fact that there are these huge numbers. When we divide up the fellowships, we make sure that we pick those geographical areas that are typically not so well represented, and ensure that we have only a small fraction from places which anyway have possibilities to do research, like the ICERs. In fact, even though we really like the ICER students, we make it a point not to pick too many ICER applicants to these programs, simply because we would like to have other people who would not otherwise have this opportunity to be able to get these fellowships. So I think other programs, people who run such programs also will come up with these kind of measures, because over time they will see these are the kind of patterns that show up, and in order to be more equitable in our distributions, we will have to adopt these kind of strategies. The other thing is, like Anushila just said, we also have these write-ups, questions about interest and so on. We also have the recommendations from teachers. Even though there are all these other issues with these recommendation letters, it's useful to still keep those letters, I feel, because what will often happen is you will have this bunch of 10 students applying from the same college, okay? And then everyone's write-up, sometimes it's a little difficult. So then the teacher's inputs actually come in handy. We often also have this one line at the bottom for the teacher or the referee to say that if you are recommending more than one student, please put your rank order. I think those are all useful things to keep in mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Lakshmi, this will be the last question we'll discuss as panelists. So maybe your thoughts on how to expand opportunities for research and any advice for the REACT program.
So adding on to whatever they've said, the other additional thing is, in some cases, I should say, there may be a privileged candidate whose area of interest or even brief idea would be given by the teacher, and that would happen. So factoring in exactly how Dr. Shiba said, factoring in where the application coming from, the social economic scenario of it, their exposure so far, those, if you can implement, then I think your reach would be better. Is just, that's, I don't know how you're going to achieve it, but so there is the program of the KVPY, there is the IAS Summer Research Fellowship, there's IIT's Summer Research Fellowship, you have JNCSR Summer Research Fellowship. All of this, the number of undergraduates we have and the programs that are existing definitely don't match, right? But because your UGC is insisting that you have a 6 months project, most of them, if they have active researchers in their universities, they would get exposed to some kind of research or otherwise. The problem would come, exactly what Dr. Sinha said, in colleges which are not affiliated to bigger universities, which don't have a mandatory to maintain a NIRF rating, for example. So you will not have a researcher, an active researcher sitting over there. Though, not to take away the teacher's ability to build a research question, but if picking up, just to give the student an exposure to how active research labs work, how do they do, choosing from those colleges and those places might be useful. So all I'm saying is add in a factor of where the application is coming from to a slightly larger detail. That's, and you could always have not just a write-up. If you can catch, you're trying to catch them young, which is exactly what KVPY does. They do it at the first year of when they join in. So a generalized test would be helpful, but the magnitude of writing the test may be difficult, conducting the test may be difficult. But just the questions in KVPY were very interesting, even 25 years back. It was nothing to do with factual. It was to just think and write. So that would bring out the capacity of a student. And for all you know, from the rural sector, we might get much brilliant brains who are able to deal with the day-to-day scenario, give a solution for the day-to-day scenario. Just think about it also much better. So that would be my 2 cents.
Thank you. I request Jayant to add in his closing comments or thoughts.
Yes. So quickly, commenting on what institutions can do to inculcate research-based practices. I think one thing I would say is institutions which run undergraduate programs should invite as much researchers from diverse fields to come and talk to students, and not just talk to students. I mean, like not give a talk, 1 hour talk or whatever, but to kind of have interactions with students for a longer duration, where students can approach them, get to know better what exactly happens in their labs, and get an exposure. And if it's a residential program, if these resource persons can stay overnight, that will actually lead to a better interaction with the student researcher interaction. And in terms of what undergraduate students can do to promote their own projects, is to, as other panelists have mentioned, to do any project out of passion, out of joy, and not because of parental pressure or peer pressure. That's all I would like to say.
Thanks, Chand. Dr. Urmila, if you can share your closing thoughts.
Thank you. So, first and foremost, REACT is a very, very brilliant initiative. And, when you pose this question of how to, sort of select students or how to do this fitment of mentors and mentees, what I could think of, is two-pronged approach. One is you have some kind of methodology which you might evolve, or the panelists have suggested to shortlist the candidates and have them attached to the researchers and the laboratories. But then REACT can also think of another approach that REACT ambassadors can go and visit rural areas especially, and can have sessions, half-a-day sessions in different colleges or schools, wherein they go, they tell their research stories, and they sort of enthuse the interest, and let the students speak in terms of what they would like to do, and if that kind of mentorship is also provided, it would be a good idea. Then pandemic has also taught us how to think beyond the normal, and then you can have this virtual internships, although a lot has been said about that the virtual education is taxing, tiring, and there are certain issues with that. But no matter, it also proved that despite the challenges of lockdown, the training programs world over ran with more or less efficiency. So you can have say 3 types of interactions. One is one-on-one, another is online, and the third is REACT ambassadors visiting the schools and colleges to encourage students to align with the objectives of the REACT. I think I can think of these as practical solutions to how REACT program can be shaped. And I'm aware that whatever we discussed is not enough to charter a program of this scale, and many more inputs are required. You can think of, expert database, the mentors database, their areas, and wish list of mentees, and that can be used, to tag the mentor and mentees for some one-on-one interactions or things like that. So offhand, I think I can give you these suggestions. But I think science is a continuum of ideas, and all of us love to sort of start with ideas and then try to address the problems, and that opens new areas, and it's a continuum. And if we can give exposure to young minds with respect to science as a continuum, and science can be done in a very elegant, artistic, and happy manner, I think REACT would have achieved its objective. Thank you.
Thank you very much. On this note, I would like to thank all panelists, all 5 panelists who came quite late on a Saturday evening to talk to our audience members. So once again, thank you all. Thanks all of you. And even though I would not call myself an early career researcher anymore, but even I learned quite a bit by listening to the panelists. I'm sure our audience would have found it equally useful. So with that, I will hand over the reins to Manali for closing thoughts.
Thank you so much, Shriram, Anushila, and Shiva for moderating this session so nicely. And of course, our panelists. This was really useful. And I think I was just, thinking that with all your input on how we can take forward the REACT program, can definitely let it run for, 10 more years or so. We were just thinking like maybe 1 year, we will see how it goes, but such brilliant ideas. We can plan for, much more. So thank you. With that, this was the final session for Sci-ROI India virtual launch event. So I'd like to present a few concluding remarks. I have learned so much over these last 2 days, thanks to all our panelists, our moderators, our volunteers, the whole leadership team, and especially our audience. Thank you for joining us. And, I had a few takeaways. I hope you had yours too. But just to kind of summarize, we had such diverse sessions, like starting from, we had really established forerunners in Indian STEM, talking about what young STEM professionals can do when they start their positions. And they had such lovely, inspirational thoughts, don't think about, what can science do for you, like think about what can you do for science and how can you contribute. And, always think about like where your interest is, right? And what excites you. And academia is not really the end of line. There is so much beyond academia that's happening even in India now. So really go for, those questions and aim high and, go for big cutting edge questions and don't, get entangled into small, things that people usually happen to do. Then we had like a session on cross-sector collaboration where I think we had panelists from academia, industry, startup, and funding agency. And what they told us, just to summarize, our moderator who put it brilliantly is like for collaborations, there's these 5 Ps that are very important, right? So planning for the idea, having realistic expectations, and really you need to have a lot of patience, perseverance for the collaboration, and file a patent as soon as possible for the product you're developing, and have a well-researched and much needed product, right? So just to start, and then there were also discussions about how tech transfer offices are so important to initiate and sustain such collaborations, as well as documentation for IP and patent management. So these are things that we were looking forward to, right? So to know more about where these gaps exist and how Sci-ROI India can help in initiating some solutions for these. So again, like we followed that up with a session on early career grants in India, and there's a lot that was discussed. I just in here and there I just took a few points here, but for grant proposals, again the same point was made that your research idea should be unique, should deviate from your PhD and postdoc work. Be realistic, think about the Indian STEM ecosystem when you're writing your proposal, and do find collaborators and mentors early for your proposal, because I think all the funding and everything is now kind of going towards collaborative, if you work with multi-PI grants and everything. So that's what we were kind of discussing yesterday. And then this morning, the first session of this evening was with for returning Indian diaspora, and a few of the advices that were given were like, start networking early, even 1-2 years before you are coming back to India. and scope your institutes before joining. If you have a chance to travel, attend conferences, learn about the regulatory clearances that are needed, and make informed decisions. I mean, coming back is a great decision if that's what you would like, but do research, do talk to your peers and mentors before coming back, so you know what you're getting into, right? And with that, our final session for today, and again, so many things discussed. I just jotted down a very few points, very few. So, I think something that really struck me was like, we keep talking about research mentorship, but that's really not only for someone going into bench research, right? Like, as we call it, like, it will also give the undergrads or mentees a possibility to enhance their soft and transferable skills and build their thinking capability. And then again, for the mentors as well, our young investigators or PhDs and postdocs, they, undergrads themselves and mentees, provide opportunities to broaden perspective. I think I loved when Dr. Lakshmi said, like, we learn from each other, right? So mentees, mentors also learn from mentees as well. So that's like a very beautiful way of putting it. And then, yeah, I do agree, ask questions. Both mentees and mentors learn, something which I wasn't, taught when I grew up. So I think this is really, really important. I wish, we were also brought up in that kind of culture. So I really encourage everyone, especially mentees listening in, do ask questions. So with this, I'm just going to again put out like some of the programs that we are starting this year in 2022. We will be doing regular webinars on evolving trends in Indian STEM. We already started last year, but we'll be continuing, so people can get to know what's really happening, what's the new and exciting thing that's happening in India. Then we talked about React a lot in this session. So keep an eye out. We are planning to start the first batch in summer of this year. So, everyone who has registered will definitely get to know more about this. We also talked about a collaborative database that we have started. So, any independent Indian STEM investigator or researcher, can add themselves to the collaborative database, and that will give them opportunities, to initiate collaborations. We are also thinking along the line of collaborative database to start some tech transfer courses. Again, as we were saying, these are the offices that are becoming really important to build products through academia industry research collaborations. So something that we have found is a need, on a national level, if we can have some of these kind of courses. And the last but not the least, we have a lot of interest in, brain circulation as well. So we are looking into how to bring back Indian diaspora, so they can come back and establish themselves in India as well. So we will have a personalized return to India mentorship program for them. So, their transition can go smoothly and they are highly successfully established when they come back. So with that, thank you everyone for joining again. Please become a member if you feel these programs will benefit you. And if you have any suggestions for us on how to improve or, to implement other programs as well, we'll be happy to hear more. So do write back to us. And we are also on the social media platforms. Just search for Sci-ROI India, and you can connect there as well, and we'll be updating our, whatever we are doing, we'll be updating there as well. So with this, I would like to invite Professor Asim Ansari. He's the founder of Sci-ROI India, and I just wanted to maybe hear a little bit about, and nothing of this would have been possible without his visionary approach. So just wanted to know a bit more about this from you, Asim. So.
Thank you, Manali. I mean, it's humbling to see where Sci-ROI has come. I want to thank all the panelists here. I want to thank all the volunteers and the leadership of Sci-ROI over the years. So, you've heard a lot of things today, and what I took away was actually inspiring to me after 50 years of being here. A lot of things, a lot of messages, that are relevant no matter where you are, whether you're in India or here, anywhere. Patience, persistence, perseverance, these things are absolutely important. These are things that came up recurringly. Thinking out of the box, not imagining yourself within the parameters that the world has drawn for you. Here's your academic path, here's your industry path, here's your family path if you're a woman, right? This came up quite prominently yesterday, where the challenges faced by women, societal, biological, and then the lack of empathy or realization that these are real challenges. You can't just sweep under the rug and pretend they don't exist. All these things are learnings for me as well. So how do you work with these parameters and imagine solutions that are non-obvious, right? This can only be done if you're looking for solutions. Often we are simply complaining about the problems that we see, right? And what Sci-ROI has embodied for me actually is a continuous search for solutions. Now, somewhere in the questions, I think Piyush put down that, Sri Ram came to me when we were planning for the Khurana program. And part of the Khurana program, again, one of you here mentioned TIFR summer programs. I'm a product of one of those summer programs. Many, many, many years ago. I won't tell you how many. But I accidentally loitered into a summer program. I experienced the joy of discovery, and that completely changed my trajectory. I was going to go do something completely different, right? And I wanted to share that with other undergraduates at that formative point in their career, second year, third year summer. And I remember when KVPY came to life, with Dipankar, we were actively involved in building KVPY ICERs with Ganesh. I remember that with Siana Rao and Ganesh sitting in those meetings. And Khurana program came to life at the same time. Khurana, KVPY, ICERs, all of this, Dipankar at ISC, Ganesh at Pune, NCL at the time, and myself out here at Wisconsin. All of this was to enable undergraduates because all of us had experienced a moment in time where, the joy for discovery became apparent to us, right? So that's where we were. And then, of course, Sri Ram came along. He was a postdoc or a scientist at the Wisconsin Institute of Discovery and said, well, what do you do for people who are looking for career opportunities in India? And that struck a chord because I had classmates who had done their PhD. I'm sorry, I should just pass this down. This is just basically waving. Classmates who had, finished their PhDs and couldn't find career options, right? And they got stuck in these intermediate career paths where they were neither assistant professors or independent investigators, nor were they postdocs, right? They're stuck in these subordinate positions, and their brilliance is used by people who are above them. And so I tried to encourage many of the postdocs in my lab, have you considered going back to India? And I'd failed consistently. And part of it was because I didn't know what opportunities existed in India. And so Sriram provided that critical, nudge, if you will, and then his energy and his enthusiasm and his organizational skills were absolutely critical. In a matter of a few months, it was exactly 7 years ago. I remember it was February or March of 2015. We were trying to organize the Khurana program's orientation for May. And Sriram sort of brought this question up. Then he came to the meetings we were having for the orientation. And very quickly, he reached out and assembled a group of people who came to the orientation of the Khurana program at the consulate in Chicago. And Sci-ROI was born. Sci-ROI was then, of course, propagated by a continuum of leaders. Shomashish was one of them. Piyush is there. Now you have Manali. And then you also have Anushila, you have Siva. These are volunteers who decided not just to passively listen, here are the opportunities, but when they found a gap, right, something they wanted to know about and wasn't being done, they stepped in and said, why is this problem still here? This is what goes back to think beyond this problem, think about the solution, and not just a solution that is impractical, but an implementable, small, simple solutions that can make a big difference. And there are many. We all look to, I have this rare disease, how I'm going to cure it. There are many ways, many steps on the way that we sort of leapfrog almost, because that's what we are taught to do. But in this case, to make real change, you have to do that. As we started sending people back, and all these volunteers found new programs, tech transfer, innovation, entrepreneurship, etc., not just academia. Academia, IITs, then ICERs, then, oh, why not look at private universities? And you heard Shomashish talk, you saw Piyush, etc., have gone to private universities and are doing really well, right? If you'd asked me in 2015, would you send a talented person to a private university? I would have said no. Today, I've completely changed my mind, seeing what private universities are trying to do for the scientific ecosystem discovery and education in that sense by doing. So things are evolving, volunteers are making it happen, and I wanted to thank that and acknowledge that. Right? And so why Sci-ROI India today, right? Sci-ROI India similarly came about when I was visiting India in 2016, 17, 18 it was, where a group of people that had gone back had taken up on our challenge that go back to India and be change agents. And they had gone back and they were encountering serious bureaucratic problems or just, ecosystem problems where people didn't know what to do with people at this level. Because a junior assistant professor in India is an assistant to the professor. Right? They're not independent investigators. The head of department says, teach, go get the guest, organize this conference, take care of my laundry, all they will do, right? And so how do you change that ecosystem, especially if you're not even a lecturer or reader? It's even worse. If you're a fellow, they don't even know what to do with you then, right? So recognizing this over those visits back to India for the Corona program, for Sci-ROI, etc., for various things, what became clear to us, and I remember Arun poignantly pointing out, and a couple of them actually came back to the US, right? People who had gone to really, premier places, not small places, premier places, encountered serious challenges and decided to just come back. So having seen that, they motivated this idea. And I remember discussing this with my partner in crime, Navida. And she said, what we really need is a network in India that supports people who have made that difficult decision to go back and build their careers and be change agents in India. We need to give them voice. And that's how Sci-ROI India started. And it was November 2019 when I was last there. And I met with some of the policymakers, and they were talking about STIP at the time at the PMO's office and DST, DBT. All these guys were at the India Science Fair in Kolkata. And there was a lot of interest, and the minister was there. And he said, well, what we should do is build Sci-ROI India. And there were many Sci-ROI alums who showed up in Kolkata. And that group then, at that point, nucleated the thought that there should be Sci-ROI India. COVID hit and that slowed things down. But as you can see, this launch has made clear that there was need, there's opportunity, and the impact you will see for decades, right? React, all these programs that have emerged are brainchilds or brainchildren, if you will, of people that have gone back, people who are here, who are thinking of ways, non-linear ways of impacting the ecosystem and bringing about change in a mutually beneficial way, not just, some charity being done. It will benefit the entire world. It'll benefit us, it'll benefit people there. So my last piece for the 5 people who are left at this hour, beyond the panelists, is that if you've stayed this long, you clearly want to see a difference, make a difference. Join this organization, work with the volunteers, bring your ideas, and let them help you to either integrate your ideas or create things that address problems, create solutions, refine your solutions and implement them. And be the change agents that you are inevitably going to be one way or the other. Come in, join, and make a difference. And with that, once again, let me thank everybody at the panel, people who have spoken in previous panels. They've inspired me. Every year I go through this moment, it's like, should we do this? And every year when I hear these sorts of things, it is the energy bolus I need to continue. So thank you very much for that. And Manali, Sriram, and the panelists, Siva and Anushri, of course, Anushila, sorry. Thank you for moderating this amazing panel today. I really loved what you're putting together, and for the entire session, and for launching Sci-ROI India. I hope all the panelists will help us build Sci-ROI India. It is not a copy of what already exists, like India Biosciences or other things like this. This is for all sciences, and it's at multiple levels. It's not to just present your best work, but also present your problems, explore solutions, and make a difference. Thank you very, very much. It's been an honor and just an inspirational experience for me.
Thank you so much, Asim. This was a really nice, ending to our launch event, and we hope to continue this journey in the coming years. And thank you, our panelists. It's pretty late in India, and you are still staying back. So thank you so much, and our attendees as well. With this, we'd like to finish this session. Thank you for joining, and we hope we can stay in touch and collaborate in the near future. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good night or good day ahead. Bye.